Third POV. Not long after May pressed the play button, the next video began, starting with the Death Battle logo and theme. These two masters of evil are experts at bending others to their will, but beneath the mask lie the scars of their past. Began the video. Literally. Our suspicions that this would be a villain versus villain battle were correct. Edgeshot narrowed his eyes. However, this theming alludes to their turn to darkness to be tragic ones. The students did a double take on Edgeshot's words. Throughout their numerous viewings of these multiple worlds, they had witnessed a variety of villain archetypes, each with varying degrees of depravity and evil shown among them. They've seen unremorseful villains from Akuma and Shang Tsung to Lex Luthor and Shao Kahn, monsters born out of possession and corruption, some against their will, like Nightmare and Fulgore, and some willing, like Sector. They've even witnessed fighters who started off as villains only to be redeemed into heroes or vigilantes, such as Vegeta, Shadow, and Scorpion. If what Edgeshot said was true, it appeared to explore the idea of villains who ended up that way because they were pushed or guided toward darkness, or carried a tragic past. At another time, Bakugo and Ida would scoff at the idea. To the explosive blonde and tall blue-haired teen, there was always a choice. You were either good and heroic, or you could choose to break the law and be treated as a villain. It was their first year at UA that challenged and even broke much of what they first assumed. Ida looked down at his arm, still somewhat stiff as it bore the weight of his wounds done on him by the hero killer Stain, recalling how he broke the law and chased after Stain like a vigilante, all for justified, yet petty revenge, or how he went off with Midoriya, Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, and Kirishima to rescue Bakugo from the League. By all rights, he should have been treated like a vigilante for his actions, and yet he was spared and told to turn the experiences into something to grow and learn from. Is it because of my family's name that I was spared? Or the potential Mr. Aizawa sees in me? Ida contemplated. Meanwhile, Bakugo glanced down at his palms, thinking about the wrongs he'd done to Deku, the way he had behaved, and how society had favorably treated him. With all the shit I did to Deku, I should be in a cell in Tartaros, not working to be a hero, and yet I was the hero of the story, and Deku was the one people said was the villain, the obstacle in my path of greatness, Bakugo bitterly recalled. Suddenly, something about Wizards and Edgeshot's lines made him think harder on. Scars of the past. Tragic turns to darkness. There were only two people in the group who could have fitted the bill, and one of them made his guilt and dread all the worse. Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. Boomstick introduced the first fighter. And Dr. Doom, Sovereign Ruler of Latveria, was introduced the latter. Sovereign Ruler. Like a king? Kendo questioned, eyes widening. A villain in control of an entire country. Nizu stated, frowning at such a horrendous outcome. Toshinori gritted his teeth. Despite his rule mainly coming from the shadows, it would be no stretch to the imagination that All for One was basically the king of Japan's underworld, and through his influence via his cronies and implanted agents, was an unchallenged demon lord of their country. The quirk-stealing villain allowed the cycle of heroes and villains to continue as a means of maintaining a status quo to the wider public, striking more personally if an individual's quirk caught his greedy eye, or if someone attempted to overthrow the so-called Demon King, such as the previous users of One for All. Most of my time as the symbol of peace was spent tearing down All for One's shadowy kingdom, one minion an operation at a time, before I faced the monster himself, Toshinori reminisced. If only I finished the job. Instead, he survived and rebuilt and planned to bring me and the rest of hero society crumbling down, all under my nose. The former symbol of peace raised his gaze to meet the image of Dr. Doom. Makes me shudder to imagine what life would have been if All for One had chosen to rule more openly than before. Izuku frowned when he stared at the image of Darth Vader, the Sith Lord, Luke Skywalker's father, his counterpart's father. Does this mean his counterpart could also be Dash? Izuku shook his head before the thought fully finished. No, that's not a guarantee. In the same world, Ochako is Leia's counterpart, Luke's sister, and we're clearly not related. At least I hope so. However, Izuku's great memory brought up another pair of related fighters, if even potentially so. Ryu and Akuma. Wiz noted that it was a theory that Akuma was Ryu's father. Why yeah, just a theory. The thought did nothing to lessen Izuku's worry, his fists clenching as he remembered a photo of his infant self, his mother and his father, his face conveniently blurred from his memory by a glare of light. Now, Izuku worried he might see the man's face and destroy that blissful censorship. "He's Wiz and I'm Boomstick," Boomstick introduced himself and Wiz. "And it's our job to analyze their weapons, armor, and skills to find out who would win a death battle." Wiz finished the intro. The first fighter to appear was just as intimidating and chilling as the few times they'd seen him before. Dressed entirely in black leather-strapped dark armor from head to toe, Vader's figure stood tall and strong, with black leather gloves clenched into tight fists, while one hand held a lightsaber that emitted an angry red blade of light. A random, seemingly out-of-place panel of bright red, light gray, and green buttons was installed in the middle of the Dark Lord's chest, his body draped in a long black cloak that reached his feet and attached to his armor's collar. His face was obscured by a black helmet, round as a skull atop and flowingly rigid like a short mane of hair to his shoulders from the back of the head, the lenses of his eyes either black as the rest of his armor or shaded like dark rubies, and a protruding triangle-shaped mouth that appeared like a respirator. Those who had seen it shivered in brief terror, the helmet reminding the unlucky few of a similar one worn by the ultimate symbol of evil. Another individual was shown alongside the Sith Lord, yet while the attire appeared similar in color, the man himself looked every bit the opposite from the black-armored villain. The most notable appearance was that of a tall, handsome young man, with curly brunette hair flowing down to his shoulders and framing his chiseled face. The only outward blemish was a small scar by his right eyebrow. The man's outfit featured two distinct styles. One was a set of dark, blue-armored robes with maroon sleeves, paired with brown combat boots and black leather gloves, the right glove looking stiffer and more mechanical. The other had a long, black robe that lightly hid black leather armor and maroon inner robes. The man also held a vaguely familiar lightsaber with a blue blade. His handsome features were enough to leave several of the girls blushing or swooning, and the guys either jealous or nodding with respect. However, a number of the group's keener members could spot something wrong within the man's eyes, a darkness that burned deep and corruptive. Darth Vader. Darth Vader. Wiz began the Sith Lord's analysis while the Imperial March theme blasted in the background. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, this mass murderer was one of the most dangerous and respected killers among the stars. The group shuddered at the sight of one of the first individuals they had witnessed in the beginning of their death battle viewings, who appeared in the very first one, in fact, Boba Fett versus Samus Aran. The recurring appearances did nothing to mitigate the shivers down their spines, student, child, and adult alike. His very presence and build screamed fear and oppression. Darth Vader, the Sith Lord. Endeavor narrowed his eyes. If memory serves, they stated that the Sith Lords are the dark, evil mirror of the Jedi, using the dark side of this force. And one of the most awkward family relations, Present Mike coughed, taking a peek down at one certain green-haired student. His not-so-subtle words drew more glances toward Izuku Midoriya, some sneaky, others openly curious, recalling the father-son link between Darth Vader and one of the green-haired student's many counterparts, Luke Skywalker. Awkwardness and conflict flickered across his face, with Ares' calming presence helping him try, and fail, to appear unaffected. Mike received an elbow to the gut from Midnight, knocking the wind out of the voice hero, alongside a glare at Mick's insensitivity. The important thing is if both Jedi and Sith can access the Force, then Vader may share the same powers and abilities as Skywalker, Midnight said, attempting to draw attention away from Midoriya. They also share similar weapons with their lightsabers. However, there are likely to be key differences between both power sets, physical stats, and skill with their weaponry, Aizawa pointed out. Vader's older age and taller, stockier build may make his fighting style different than Luke Skywalker's. Then there are these dark and light sides of the Force. Each side must have differing sets of abilities and traits that would make there be even to be a difference between a Jedi and a Sith. Like the Satsui no Heido and the power of nothingness from Ryu and Akuma? Miruko offered. Similarly, yes. Aizawa nodded. Nobody stood a chance, Boomstick agreed. He was a force to be reckoned with. Haha, starting strong with the puns, I see. Kominari spoke in an exaggerated, old, wise voice. Nijire and Tamaki craned their heads almost robotically toward their blonde friend, who raised his hands in surrender. His lips curled so far into his mouth that he looked like he had eaten a very sour piece of candy. But before he was a Dark Lord of the Sith, he was Anakin Skywalker. Was delved into the Sith Lord's backstory, revealing the 9-year-old boy before his life changed forever. An innocent child sold to slavery on the harsh desert planet of Tatooine. That sweet little boy turned into him? Hagakure asked, her shell-shocked expression hidden by her ever-active quirk. He was a slave. On the same planet his son would grow up in, Izuku muttered, finding an irony in such events. Izuku chuckled shortly. It actually makes sense. What does? Shoto quirked an eyebrow. Why Luke was never found by Vader beforehand, Izuku answered. If Vader Anakin whatever was a slave on this planet, then it makes sense why Vader or the Empire never found Luke there. He must have hated it when he was Anakin so much that he would never go back there, and he would never find Luke either. It does, Ida nodded. Trauma is harder and more apparent where it originated. Brings back painful memories more easily. Quick to catch such details as ever, Midoriya-san. Izuku nodded, his discerning expression and smile marred by sympathy and deeper understanding. It was easy to catch something you felt and knew so intimately. In his mind, there was only one place that he could picture that held the same pain for him as Anakin. The same place he never wanted to return for any reason. Aldera. Meanwhile, Bakugo watched his face, a silent understanding in his eyes. Anakin was a prodigy mechanic, a prodigy pod racer, and a prodigy Jedi. So I'd say the junk dealer who bought him got a pretty sweet deal, Boomstick commented. Images displayed of Anakin showing a half-finished C-3PO to Padme, piloting a pod racer, and brought before the Jedi Council. You know, apart from the whole ownership of people thing. He made a robot, May yelled excited. And at such a young age, Power Loader muttered impressed. From what I can see, he looks to be about 9 or 10 years old. He likely also worked on that vehicle with how knowledgeable he is with it, David commented, his head nodding animatedly and slowly. Then Liam Neeson showed up and measured his power level to find out that this kid was the chosen one, destined to do something great that would bring balance to the all-powerful force, Boomstick revealed. Whatever the fuck that means. Whoa, 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 hold the F up, Nina exclaimed, waving her arms in front of her stunned face. He, the same guy who becomes dark, menacing, evil, bad guy, is supposed to be the chosen one? A world's chosen one, destined for greatness but fallen into darkness, Nizu hummed, his analytical mind bringing back up his knowledge he gained since the first night they received the device. How they revealed one for all to Aizawa. Had Setsuna Tokeiji eavesdrop and swore to secrecy. Command the device to censor all knowledge about One for All and its connection to Midoriya and All Might. How it revealed the true importance of Izuku Midoriya to our world. Background. Height. 6 feet 7 inches / 2 meters. Weight. 299 pounds. / 136 kilograms. 46. Home world, Tatooine. Train 13 apprentices. Languages known. Basic standard, English. Autis. Droid binary. Built C-3PO. Conceived by midi-chlorians. Ugh. Freed from slavery and trained under Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin grew into an extremely powerful Jedi, capable of lifting starships and crushing buildings with just his mind, was explained Anakin's career as a Jedi. There's that force-based telekinesis, the same as Luke's, Melissa noted. As well as any other Jedi and Sith, I guess. The difference, however, between Luke and Anakin, though, must be from raw talent and training, Momo figured. Two people with the same or similar quirk can still defeat the other depending on their skills and personal experience. Kirishima and Tetsu perked up, sneaking glances at each other as subtly as they could, which wasn't subtle at all. Their quirks were often compared for their similarities, even by themselves. Back in the sports festival, their fight ended in a draw, forcing a tiebreaker. Later, they ended up at the same agency for their internships, with Tetsu set to work under Fat Gum alongside Kirishima soon. This overlap stirred up quiet self-confidence issues in both, though neither would admit it. Still, it fueled their rivalry, each determined to surpass the other and prove who was the strongest, manliest hero in training. And we did in our own ways, Ejiro thought with a soft smile, remembering his personal accomplishments, from beating Tetsu for the first time in the tie-breaking arm wrestling match, aided in the defeat of Wolfram and his gang, helped save Bakugo from the League of Villains, helped defeat two powerful villains during the Hasaikai raid, and aided in defeating Chimera. And we'll still go beyond, plus ultra style. Tetsu thought similarly with a proud grin, also reminiscing about his personal growth, such as learning to adapt to elemental attacks with his steel body and helping his team achieve a draw compared to Kirishima losing quickly in his match during their respective joint class training exercise. He quickly rose through the Jedi ranks to the very top, and led the legendary 501st Legion in the galaxy-wide Clone Wars, was continued. Clone Wars? Kaminari questioned. Like both sides were made up of clones. Unsure, though my greater concern is the idea of a galactic-wide war in general, Jirota admitted. He also grew into a really arrogant and whiny douche, Boomstick noted. It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's holding me back. Anakin raged at Padme inside the Lars family farm. Bakugo winced, not liking how similar Anakin's rant sounded to his own, whether it be blaming his losses and shortcomings on others, mostly Deku, or accusing the UA teachers of sabotaging his greatness by being explicitly hard and biased against him. Thankfully, Katsuki had managed to mature and mellow out from this. Still, the self-reflectiveness the explosive blonde felt as he watched the supposed chosen one act like him made those memories all the more humiliating. Naturally curious to an extreme, the vast potential of the Force was intoxicating to Anakin. Unable to accept loss and pain, Anakin sought new powers to fix his problems, was stated ominously while showing Anakin slaughtering the Tusken Raiders. Jesus! Setsuna cursed at the sight of the raging slaughter. Power without control or discipline is akin to an ever-growing fire, burning everything and everyone in its path, including themselves, until there is nothing but ash and death. Tokoyami spoke morbidly. After a premonition of his pregnant wife's death, he decided he had no choice but to turn to the dark side of the Force for answers, was stated. Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader. The recently disfigured Darth Sidious proclaimed dramatically to his new apprentice. You! Pony gagged at Emperor Palpatine's face. He looks like a wrinkled old prune. He must be the other Sith Lord mentioned in Luke Skywalker's video, Mandalay mentioned, likewise cringing under the man's hideous appearance. Perhaps the very one that corrupted Anakin into Darth Vader. Still, at least we know why he turned, attempting to save his pregnant wife, Midnight pointed out. The tragedy of such an impossible choice is rather romantic. I imagine the romance of it will turn dry once we learn more about his actions, Ryukyu said. Despite being trained in the Jedi's pacifism, Anakin learned that he was really freaking good at killing people, and murdered nearly the entire Jedi Order in an event known as Order 66 and helped orchestrate the downfall of the Galactic Republic into the Empire, Boomstick revealed, displaying scenes of Anakin murdering the Separatist leaders and leading the 501st to the Jedi Temple. Such betrayal, no matter the reasons, is unforgivable, Edgeshot growled. Hawks frowned, his mind turning to the various prose heroes he now knew were secretly agents of the Meta Liberation Army. Meanwhile, Nizu's thoughts ventured toward the ever-elusive identity of the UA traitor. At the same time, seeing the mix of rage and disgust over Anakin's betrayal, worsened by Edgeshot's hateful tone, caused a certain blonde student to frown deeply, a shadow of shame hanging over him as his thoughts wandered to his parents. His punishment, a tearful breakup with his old master, and a leisurely dip in a pool of lava, Boomstick answered. Anakin's clash with Obi-Wan on Mustafar shone briefly before switching to Anakin being burned alive. Holy shit! Kamakiri cursed, repulsed at the sight. And all his limbs looked chopped off. Not his right one though, Cozy Eye awkwardly pointed out. That clearly is a robotic prosthetic, Always corrected. At that point, how is he even alive? What was it you said about consuming fire burning everything, including themselves? Shoji asked Tokoyami. I rest my case, Tokoyami nodded. Shoto shuddered as he saw Anakin burn severely, making his facial scar look like a mild bruise in comparison. Endeavor noticed his son unconsciously touching his scar, a flare of shame surging in his heart, while suspicion and dread grew like moss as his thoughts turned to another firequirk user with severe burn scars. Dobby. After some pretty intense reconstructive surgery, he was rebuilt as the black-cloaked Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader, was declared. Iconic music played as Darth Vader's operating table rose vertically, revealing the new Dark Lord of the Sith, and another shot of the Sith apprentice stalking forward with a group of stormtroopers with his red lightsaber. A chill ran down the group's spines as the Sith Lord's menacing, overwhelming presence filled the air, paired with the unforgettable music etched into their minds. Jiro's shudder was doubled by music and presence, unable to deny that the music was catchy and iconic, despite it basically screaming tyranny and oppression. Izuku's hands clenched painfully as he saw the downfall of the good man that was Anakin Skywalker and his corruption into Darth Vader, knowing all the while that, in another lifetime, this was his father. Why? How can such a good man, the chosen one no less, fall so low? Izuku asked himself. He heard Wiz when he stated that Anakin was persuaded by power and desperation for his pregnant wife, but he knew that wasn't the full story he wanted to hear. I feel like something's missing. Damn, talk about an ungrateful, whiny bitch. Boomstick mocked. Well, Anakin's descent into darkness wasn't exactly an easy one, was pointed out. A shot of Anakin's tearful, conflicted face shone as the newly turned Sith stared at the lava of Mustafar. Nor one he wanted initially. Such pain and deep sadness in those eyes, Kurwaro noticed, frowning sympathetically. The eyes of a man at war with himself but unable to turn back from the sins he has already committed. All sinners can find forgiveness and repentance if their hearts are truthful and their actions willing, Ibera stated, hands clasped together in prayer. The shame-filled blonde from before, as well as Bakugu, perked at Ibera's words. Even after destroying an order of peacekeepers he once fought for and committing a coup that turned a democratic system into a tyrannical empire, Kendo asked challengingly. Well, that isn't to say that there wouldn't be any appropriate punishments for such acts, Ibera muttered, cheeks blushing. Her clasped hands turned into her pointer fingers tapping each other awkwardly. Both blondes slumped their heads again. Remember when we said he rose to the very top of the Jedi Order? Yeah, that was a lie, Boomstick revealed. He only reached the rank of Jedi Knight, was treated with suspicion and mistrust for his emotions and reckless behavior, no matter the lives saved, and when finally accepted into the Jedi High Council, he was denied a very required promotion by Samuel L. Jackson. How can you do this? It's unfair, Anakin complained toward the stone-faced Jedi Council members. How can you be on the council and not be master? Take a seat, young Skywalker, Mace Windu ordered seriously. My meme senses. Strong they are, Kaminari moaned. Midoriya man, write this shit down. It's pure gold, Jiro murmured incomprehensively, torn between demanding Midoriya ignore Jaminya's absurd request and use of Midoriya's time and notebook space, but unable to deny how funny and memorable they would be as memes. Also, Jiro looked again at Midoriya's backpack full of spare and old notebooks. He's got pages to spare, Jiro admitted. Back to the whole denied promotion and suspicion thing. Yeah, I gotta side with Skywalker on that, Mina admitted, arms crossed over her chest. If it's required for him to be a master to be on the council, then why deny him that? I'm sure they have their reasons for such an exception, Azuri croaked, her sense of respect for authority flaring in her chest. Yeah. And what about the whole treat with suspicion and mistrust crap? Hagakure voiced her displeasure. He was strong, cool, and saved lives. They said he was the literal chosen one. It would be reasonable to treat someone so volatile and wild as Skywalker with such opinions, chosen one or not, Ida responded. his face stern and uncompromising, despite the flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Yeah, like you all did with Bakugu," Nijire thought, barely keeping the opinion to herself as she glared at Bakugu, a student who started as violent, uncompromising, rude, and incredibly arrogant, and someone she was sure had bullied her Zuzu since before UA, and made no attempt to hide his ill-warranted feelings toward the adorable cinnamon roll. Yet rather than any appropriate consequence or action taken, all she saw was unmitigated praise and adoration from his group of friends, especially Kirishima, and little to no disciplinary action taken by any of the teachers, especially Mr. Aizawa, a fact that made her respect for her former homeroom teacher drop. His slaughtering of the Tusken Raiders was sparked by a premonition through the Force, showing his mother's death, was further revealed. Upon finding her in her last dying moments, Anakin's rage consumed him, slaughtering all the Raiders, man, woman and children too, for the loss of the one parent he ever had. Okay, genocide of an entire people isn't something that I condone. But this... Setsuna voiced her conflicted feelings on the matter. "It's understandable, how about that?" Uraraka offered helpfully. "I'll take it," Setsuna shrugged. "Oh, so, he's also got neglectful daddy issues too?" Boomstick asked. "Well yes, but actually it's more like no dad issues," was clarified. "It's highly assumed that Anakin was conceived through the Force itself into his mother's womb." Ibara's eyes began to widen drastically. Wait. You're telling me this chosen one-turned-bad guy is actually Space Jesus?" Boomstick exclaimed, an image of Anakin's face plastered over a painting of Jesus Christ. "Wow. That's wow," Melissa said intelligently. The rest of the group wasn't any better. Their slack jaws and wide eyes mirroring each other, every student and adult alike, with only Kuta and Eri still looking confused. "What's wrong, Papa?" Eri asked, confused. "Is this Jesus guy important?" Why yeah, you could say that." Izuku nervously chuckled and scratched his cheek. "We'll tell you too about it some other time. Ibara could tell you guys better than anyone," Itsuka muttered, glancing over to the vine-haired girl. "When she's ready, I mean." The devout Christian of Class 1B was stunned as she gazed at the screen, her mind unable to process such an earth-shattering comparison, nor how such a literal chosen one could fall. Ibra always felt the most stingy and conflicted with the existence and of the multiverse and the various powers and worlds it opened to their minds, especially when it came to supposed godly entities or the existence of magic and witchcraft as an everyday, ordinary aspect of their universe, something her faith notoriously against. She could still remember the aneurysm she felt when processing the world of Harry Potter. Over time, Ibra came to accept the idea as fact, broadening her beliefs to embrace the concept of the multiverse rather than opposing it. This was different, like a version or stand-in of Jesus, but one who fell into darkness. Was it because he was so human and flawed that Anakin fell to sin when my Lord didn't? Or is it trying to say that even he could have fallen if led astray? Ibra's brain started to hurt from all the difficult, controversial questions that could get her ridiculed by her like-minded peers if she said them out loud. Ultimately, with no easy or comfortable answer, Shiozaki pushed the topic to the side. For now, I imagine this is quite the shocking and controversial topic. However, there is something more concrete and easier to understand with this revelation, Nizu said. And I'm sure they are about to expand on this just now. Well, it's also theorized that Darth Sidious and his then-alive master Darth Plagueis tried using the midi-chlorians, the microscopic life forms of the Force residing in every living thing's cells, to create a weapon to destroy the Jedi, only to have the Force create Anakin as retribution, was tried explaining Anakin's complex origin. Sure. That makes sense. Boomstick muttered. The way they are talking about the Force makes it sound like Tiger began. Like it's sentient, Ragdoll finished. And that Anakin was indeed created by the Force as its chosen one to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. Yeah, fat good that did. Pixie Bob gestured to the image of Darth Vader slaughtering his fellow Jedi. Confusing parentage aside, his faith in Jedi would only further crumble throughout the Clone Wars, was continued. He chafed at the Jedi Order's strict rules against emotion and attachment, forcing himself to keep his secret marriage to Senator Padmé Amidala a secret, criticized the Jedi's role in galactic politics and as generals rather than the peacekeepers they were supposed to be, and was enraged when his own Padawan apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, was framed as the culprit of a bombing at the Jedi Temple and exiled from the Jedi Order. Even when the guilty party was discovered and his Padawan pardoned, Ahsoka would still leave the Jedi Order, leaving Anakin alone with his bitterness and regrets. Such pain and turmoil, Hound Dog growled sympathetically and angrily. Every mistake and fault of the Jedi must have destroyed his faith and trust in them until that Darth Sidious snatched him up at the right moment. That sounds exactly like what All for One would do, Toshinori grumbled. Hawks winced, likewise showing sympathetic glances at Anakin Skywalker. Nagant and I would know better about seeing an arrogant organization for all of its faults, Takami thought, remembering how every dirty job and order he got from the commission slowly eroded his faith in the organization that practically raised and trained him, or how Nagant was the same and even finally snapped and killed the previous commission president. Izuku sighed sadly. Gentle criminal. La Brava. Izuku thought back to the two criminals who attempted to crash the school festival for fame and recognition. His fight with a man would turn out to be his hardest fight as he struggled to stand firm and true against the pain and desperation of both Gentle and La Brava, both of whom were failed and abandoned harshly by the world and society they lived in. I wonder how many within the League felt the same and joined because they had no other choice. Izuku's immediate thoughts pictured a pale blonde girl with sharp, vampire-like teeth and cat-like eyes. His frown deepened as his thoughts turned self-reflective, remembering every beating, bullying session, and injustice done to him, all of them testing his fortitude, any of them capable of breaking through if he slipped once, just once. If I never met All Might, if he never accepted me, would I have been the same? Izuku looked to the rest of his classmates. Achiko, whose desire to be a hero stemmed from earning the money she needed to give her financially struggling parents a comfortable life. Shoto, abused and trained harshly by his heroic father, whose sole motivation for a time was to become a hero by using only his ice to rebel against his father. Ida, who went rogue and was hungry for revenge against Stain after what the hero killer did to his brother. Bakugu, who just as easily could have been a dangerous villain in name as he was to Izuku before you. Could any of us have done the same? And that's not to mention getting lied to by Darth Sidious that he killed his pregnant wife and unborn baby, Boomstick added. Technically he didn't lie, Wiz pointed out. It's also theorized that, through his unrivaled connection to the Force, Anakin unintentionally drained Padmé's life force, as she was giving birth to Luke and Leia, to keep himself alive post-Mustafar lava bath. That's horrible! Kinoko yelled, tears in her eyes. How could he do that? He wouldn't, not if he knew what he was doing. Kendo shook her head sadly. A tragedy befitting the old tales of the Greeks, Reiko muttered, closing her eyes. A man born by life itself, chosen for greatness and light. A hero in heart and deed, fallen willingly to the dark to save the one he loves most, only to lose it all with his own hands. Revelry in the dark. Revelry in the dark. Tokoyami and Korwaro muttered in agreement. Damn. So much of that dying of sadness bullshit. Sorta makes you feel for the guy, Boomstick said sympathetically. Master Skywalker. There are too many of them. What are we going to do? A Jedi youngling asked. Anakin stared darkly at the child before igniting his lightsaber. Oh, well. Sort of. Boomstick muttered awkwardly. Aizawa glared heavily at the screen. I don't care whatever tragic backstory or misunderstanding he felt. He betrayed everything he knew and stood for because he let himself be consumed in fear and hate, Aizawa said coldly, Shirakumo's dead body and his resurrected one as Kurogyri flashing in his mind. No sad sob story makes up for the lives taken, dreams crushed, and futures ripped away. Unknown to the teacher among his students, one of them would shudder and whimper quietly. His emotions hidden to all but a certain few. If there was anything you hated about Anakin before, don't worry. Vader is nothing like that whiny little prequel bitch. Boomstick stated as scenes played of Darth Vader's raid on Kashyyyk, followed by him choking the life out of Captain Antilles with his bare hands. He's a badass through and through, with one of the coolest voices of all time. The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force, Darth Vader iconically quoted. Quite the glaze Vader's giving, Kamakiri chuckled. Is it really so powerful that it could make planet-destroying death beams look small? We shall see, Jirota said. Dark armor. Serial number E-3778 G-1. Durasteel alloy. Gauntlets have Mandalorian iron. Infrared and ultraviolet vision. Mechanical limbs. Life support system. Vader's body was sustained by his dark armor, a mobile life support system designed to protect what was left of him and intimidate foes. Was unveiled Vader's iconic armor and its blueprints. Like All for One's. All Might compared again, remembering All for One's similar-looking life support mask to Vader's. While flinching at the glimpses of what lay underneath the armor, May and Melissa wrote down as much as they could about the suit, cataloging the beneficial applications of such armor for good. Could be used to sustain and preserve someone on the brink of death until proper medical assistance, or keep someone in case of fatal injury beyond any available or theoretical treatment, Melissa listed down, mentally hoping that such possibilities would be low. Or maybe it could be used for more than just life support. The suit enhanced his vision, hearing and physique. Boomstick began listing the suited Vader's strengths and feats. With his robot limbs, he can leap dozens of feet and lift several hundred pounds, all without having to use the Force. The armor is even dense enough to deflect lightsaber blows. Kind of reminds me of the same prosthetic leg babies that Fox McCloud used to pilot his ship more efficiently, May noted, tapping her pencil on her chin. If you think we're gonna let you chop off yours or other people's limbs for efficiency, you've got another thing coming. Power Loader admonished the clearly interested inventor. Aside from mechanical limbs, which I agree is not preferable, Melissa continued her thoughts, shaking her head at the thought. If the suit can enhance a person's biology, it could be useful alternatively as a power suit, like Iron Man's and Luther's. Unfortunately for Vader, his new body had several problems, was pointed out, showing a brief glimpse of the back of Vader's head under the helmet. The armor was cumbersome and weighed him down. Much of it was mismatched, snagging and pulling on his body. His incessant raspy breathing often kept him awake. His synthetic skin itched constantly, and the control panel on his chest would sometimes beep for no reason at all. Jesus, he cursed. Or rather Space Jesus, actually. Don't push it, Ibra muttered lowly, still getting used to the recent revelation, and wasn't going to let her own Lord's name be used in vain as such. You're saying in this technological marvel of an age, we can't fix one person who's fallen into lava? Boomstick questioned. I find your lack of faith disturbing, Darth Vader quoted again as he choked an Imperial officer with a Force choke. Bad guy or not, you gotta admit, he's got some badass lines, Tetsu couldn't help but admit. That ability appears to be his Force choke, one we saw Luke use in his death battle, Reiko pointed out, tilting her head, wondering if she could perhaps replicate such a technique with her poltergeist. It's very likely Vader's Sith Master, knowing his new student could become more powerful than himself, included these faults on purpose, was explained. Purposefully weakening and limiting your underlings to keep them from ever rising against you, Endeavor analyzed. Classic villain mindset. And I imagine Vader might blame or hate Wrinkleface for going back on his word in helping to save the dude's wife, Mount Lady pointed out. While it caused problems for Vader at first, he quickly grew accustomed to his suit's limitations and modified his fighting style to complement his new stance and strength, was stated. And while his life support systems are vulnerable to electric overload, should the worst happen, he can use the Force to sustain himself for several hours. Sounds like I know just the guy to take him out. Kaminari grinned proudly, arms behind his head. Yeah, if you can get past his superhuman strength, his telekinesis that can choke you half a mile away, his army of stormtroopers, and his lightsaber that he could cut you to pieces with, Mineta said. Every danger he pointed out serving to lower the blonde's confidence till the electric quirk user falter in his leaning and fall off his beanbag seat. Weaponry. Dual-phase lightsaber. Force, Force Choke, Telekinesis, Tutaminus, Precognition, Force Barrier, Force Kill, Force Crush, Force Maelstrom, Force Destruction. Vader wields a dual-phase lightsaber. Boomstick introduced. Unlike normal lightsabers, which are already cool as shit, Vader can manually adjust his to double its length, but if it lasts for more than 4 hours, he needs to consult a doctor. A lightsaber where you can adjust the length of the blade, Powerloader muttered, recalling the 5 lightsaber crystals currently secured tightly in the support lab. All too easy, Darth Vader boasted. With his unmatched connection to the Force and training in both Jedi and Sith arts, he's learned a variety of techniques, was explained. A shot of Vader lifting the burning wreckage of a TIE fighter with one hand was shown. He can deflect energy blasts with nothing but his hands, anticipate his opponent's next moves, increase his speed and strength, and can expertly toss and direct his lightsaber like a boomerang to strike at faraway and arrogant foes. That's like a spinning blade of death, Suburaba exclaimed, using his telekinesis in tandem with his main weapon to disorient and catch his opponents off guard, Reiko analyzed. And the ability to increase his strength and speed means he wouldn't be defenseless if it missed. And if he can tell what moves his opponent is going to use, it means fighting him one-on-one is virtually impossible, Kendo added. And though his mechanical limbs cannot channel force lightning like his master, he can condense and launch a ball of electricity called Kindtite, was revealed. Oh look, I guess even if you could try and electrocute him, he could just gather it up into a ball and throw it right back at you, Ciro snickered. Okay, I get it, Kaminari yelled, red with embarrassment. And he can always use telekinesis to lift people up and choke the ever-living hell out of them, a power that would come in handy if you ever had to deal with an annoying co-host, Boomstick mentioned. Aizawa blinked, glancing subtly at Yama beside him, pondering very innocently how useful this power would have been during the sports festival. You don't know the power of the dark side, Darth Vader said to Luke. Using the dark side of the Force, Vader embraces his passion and rage in battle, complementing his extremely offensive fighting style, was explained, showing the Dark Lord of the Sith tossing around a Jedi survivor like a ragdoll and tossing his lightsaber like a boomerang to slice a Wookiee in half. The angrier he gets, the deadlier he becomes. It is similar to the Satsui no Heido, Vlad King nodded. A source of power strengthened by anger. But that rage could also be his downfall, like in that battle with his former master. Yet evading his attacks would be difficult if he could attack from every range imaginable, Midnight warned. Up close in his aggressive fighting style, increased strength and speed, and lightsaber combat could tear you apart. But at long range, he could attack with the Force, choke you with it, or even toss his blade. Strengths and feats. Collapsed a building with the Force. Killed 8 Jedi at a Kessel conclave. Moved massive starships. Can tank lightsaber blows. Expert pilot. Beast Han Solo's quick draw. Moves faster than the eye can follow. Defeated Dooku, Obi-Wan, Sandralig, Morn, and a clone Maul. He's defeated tons of Jedi Masters, including Obi-Wan himself. He matched his secret apprentice, Galen Marek, in Force combat, who is powerful enough to move Star Destroyers, pulled a starship down himself, for you Force Unleashed deniers, and killed a doppelganger of Darth Maul by impaling himself. Boomstick listed Vader's feats. Damn, that's dedication. Such power, Edshot gasped, eyes like saucers at the sight of both Starkiller and Darth Vader pulling down large to even massive starships. Did that dude just disintegrate into a pile of robes? Sato questioned. It is like he became a ghost, Dark Shadow cawed, making ghostly noises that made Reiko giggle. And finally, after discovering his long-lost son Luke Skywalker, Vader had a change of heart, was revealed. A scene shown of Darth Vader staring at Luke being tortured by Force lightning from Darth Sidious. Only for the man that was Anakin Skywalker to come through and betray his master, grabbing the Sith Lord while being electrocuted himself and tossing Sidious down a reactor shaft to his death. He rescued his son by sacrificing himself to destroy the Sith once and for all. Yep, definitely for good. Wiz's mutter was accompanied by a short clip of the infamous Kylo Ren and his crossguard saber. While the idea that there may be more Sith, if not other dark side users. After Vader and Sidious sounded unpleasant, Izuku couldn't help but smile. Anakin really was the chosen one, Izuku said. Even as he fell into darkness, his love for his son was stronger and saved him, while completing the prophecy in destroying the Sith. He fell willingly into darkness, yet rose again, sacrificing himself for those he loved, Ibra muttered, smiling. The sequence of comparable events was a bit out of order, but Anakin's redemption and sacrifice, mirroring the Messiah's death and resurrection, brought a peaceful smile to the Christian's face. At the mention of Anakin's redemption, multiple people began to ponder deeply. Toshinori's thoughts turned to Shigaraki, his master's grandson. Endeavor focused on himself and his goal to make amends for his past misdeeds toward his family. Bakugu and another blonde thought about themselves and the seemingly unforgivable sins they created. Even the girls pondered over how to make it up to Izuku after they inadvertently poisoned him with the aphrodisiacs meant for Mineta. Darth Vader is impressive, most impressive, Boomstick finished with a quote. There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you, Darth Vader warned. As Vader's part of the analysis ended, the Fallen Chosen One was held with mixed reviews from the group. A lot of the students and more hopeful adults like Toshinori and David felt more sympathetic for the broken man who was lost and then found redemption, while the rest of the more jaded and cautious adults and students like Ida and Aizawa felt that Darth Vader was still too dangerous and his redemption lacking compared to the sins he committed. No matter which side of the moral argument the group's members were on, it was clear that Darth Vader was incredibly skilled and powerful, a dangerous force of nature that couldn't be safely challenged from any distance. The next fighter looked to have a more consistent appearance, one that was almost as unnerving as the Sith Lord he would soon fight. The man stood at a similar impressive height to Darth Vader and likewise wore a caped suit of armor from head to toe, though its color scheme and composition were clearly different. The armor was a gray suit that loosely resembled a knight's, with metal gloves that sometimes crackled with green lightning, boots powered by rocket thrusters, and a grim mask with eye holes revealing his angry, arrogant gaze. His most striking feature was the long green cape that flowed to his feet and draped over his helmeted head. Some in the group remarked that he looked like a greener version of a Knight of Death. Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom, master of science, sorcery, and his own country, was introduced one of Marvel's greatest threats. Doom is undoubtedly one of the most dangerous villains in the Marvel multiverse. Shiozaki let a startled yelp at the sight of Bakuga's counterpart at the mercy of the villain. Science and sorcery, Momo muttered, intrigued. Those two fields don't often pair well together, which only makes him even more dangerous to be able to master both, Todoroki replied. And if he is the ruler of an entire country, he'd be hard to arrest, likely possessing diplomatic immunity, Endeavor mentioned. I mean, just look at him. He looks like death itself, Boomstick exclaimed. Revelry in the dark reveling trio muttered. But before he was Lord of Latveria, Victor Von Doom was a gypsy, Boomstick revealed. Excuse me. Melissa quirked an eyebrow. Background. Height. 6 feet 7 inches / 2 meters. Weight. 415 pounds. / 188 kilograms. Birthplace. Hasenstadt, Latveria. Monarch of Latveria. Second in genius only to Mr. Fantastic. Beethoven's 9th is his jam. Dislikes crust on his sandwiches. Hates squirrels, Coda frowned at this. Nemesis of the Fantastic Four. Once the infamous Iron Man and Sorcerer Supreme. Godfather to Valeria Richards. His father was a highly intelligent doctor who died of frostbite, and his mother just so happened to be a satanic witch who accidentally sold her soul to the devil, was revealed awkwardly. What? Ibra exclaimed, already not liking this character's backstory. Well, I think I can see where he got his love of science and sorcery from, Ojiro muttered, scratching his cheek. Izuku frowned, eyes narrowing at the devil that Doom's mother sold her soul to. He looks familiar. Izuku began flipping through his pages of info regarding the Marvel multiverse before eventually finding his answer. Izuku's frown deepened darkly. "Oh," he said out loud. "What's wrong, Deku?" Uraraka asked, slightly worried at Izuku's expression. "That devil, the one Doom's mother sold her soul to. He's the same one we saw in Spider-Man's analysis, Mephisto." Izuku growled, glaring daggers at the screen. "The same one your counterpart made a deal with that cost him his marriage and future daughter," Ida realized. "Way to state the painfully obvious, Prez," Jiro hissed. Apologies, Midoriya-san." Ida quickly apologized, bowing. "I didn't mean to dash." "No, it's okay, Ida." Izuku waved away the apology, eyes staring at nothing while his mind imagined himself making the same mistake as his counterpart. "I'm the one who brought it up in the first place." "With good reason, Midoriya," Ryukyu mentioned. "The more information we have on these kinds of threats, the more prepared we may be should the worst occur." The group knew what Ryukyu meant, even if she didn't express it out loud. In case any of these threats can also hop through multiverses, including their own. Poor orphan Victor was determined to master both science and magic to honor his parents, Boomstick said. And he did. By secretly combining technology and sorcery, Victor made a name for himself with a number of miraculous inventions. Was explained Doom's prowess in science and mysticism, including a robotic duplicate of himself dubbed a Doombot. Combining mysticism and technology, Jirota frowned, wary. "Is such a thing even possible?" "Not sure," David Shield answered. "It's not like we know if our world even has such magic, or even at all. Quirks are one thing, literal magic is another." A robotic duplicate of me," May muttered, imagining creating a robotic clone of herself to help her make her babies. "Oh no, absolutely not," Uraraka yelled, crossing her arms and shaking her head. "One of you is quite enough for this world," Ida declared, mimicking Uraraka. "Preach, kids," Power Loader grumbled, taking a sip from his drink. "And get used to seeing those things," Boomstick warned. "I mean, like, every time Doom has been killed, it turns out it was just a Doombot. This isn't Doom at all, it's some kind of Doombot," Iron Man said. "No wonder he didn't use the ring. It's a complete fake." The Mandarin growled. "If he can control them remotely, that means Doom can potentially overwhelm Vader through sheer numbers or having him waste his energy fighting a fake while the real one observes and analyzes how to beat him," Izuku analyzed. "But wouldn't it be easy to figure out which one is the real Doom?" Sato questioned. "Vader could try to read his mind and find out that there is no body in there. Plus, can a robot even use magic?" "I can't say for certain about that last part, it's magic after all," Azui croaked out. "Though the mind reading might not even work with the real Doom. In the Harry Potter vs. Luke Skywalker fight, we saw how Harry could resist such things with his magic. It could be Doom might have something similar. If the clip is to be taken into account, and this ring is magical in nature, then perhaps Doom's bots can only use a limited amount of magic that Doom himself possesses, but can't interact or use magical artifacts directly," 13 theorized. "He eventually developed a machine designed to take him to and from hell itself to rescue his mother," Wiz continued. "I can imagine a certain someone who would do anything to make sure that didn't function," Miruko muttered to herself, remembering a certain green-armored demon killer with an affinity for shotguns and green rabbits. "Though you have to give it to the guy, trying to save his mother from eternal damnation and all," Zero shrugged. Ibra had a comment on the tip of her tongue, something along the lines of, she was a witch and deserved her fate for dealing with the devil. But spotting Midoriya and recalling what Ida just mentioned about what Spider-Man did, she ultimately kept it to herself. "But it blew up in his face," Boomstick noted. "No, like really, it blew up in his face." An explosion was heard as the machine malfunctioned. After the accident, despite his only injury being a single scar, Victor was horrified that his always perfect face had been tainted, was stated, showing Victor's disgust and horror of his scarred face. "Wow, talk about narcissistic," Sato muttered, glancing over to a certain flamboyant blonde who conveniently was posing. "En effet," Aoyama said in French. "Though I can understand the horror of this tragedy." I can't imagine seeing my perfectly dazzling face and body mangled as such. Ahem. An exaggerated throat clearing drew Aoyama's attention. The voice came from Todoroki, gesturing to the left side of his face and toward Dekka's right hand and arm, and unknowingly Izuku's entire scar-ridden body. Aoyama flinched. Je suis désolé. Aoyama bowed his head in apology. Victor ran away to the Himalayan mountains and ended up joining a group of Tibetan monks, Batman style, was commented. He soon put them to work building him an awesome suit of armor to enhance his power and hide his face, Boomstick revealed. He was so eager to get the damn thing on that he put on the metal mask before it cooled down, messing up his face even more. As befits the price of vanity, Edgeshot muttered sage-like. Those ruled by it and pride shall be forever marred by it. Bakugu, Aoyama, and Monoma all flinched. This armor magically severed his physical connection to the world, shielding him from the nightmares and transforming him into a cold engine of logic, was stated. Thus he took the name, Dr. Doom. Victor, please. Invisible Woman pleaded while Mr. Fantastic remained strapped and frozen in a chair. Call me Doom, Victor corrected. Mineta quickly sniffled, hand conveniently over his nose, hiding the nosebleed he felt after seeing the hot blonde in the skin-tight blue outfit. I have to say, if that was supposed to be his tragic backstory like Vader's, I'm not impressed. Mount Lady shook her head. Not even his father dying of frostbite. Pixie Bob quirked an eyebrow. Well, yeah, that sucks, but that's just life. Doesn't mean you get to be a villain and be in the right? Takayama replied. With his new armor, Dr. Doom soon conquered his home country, Latveria, claiming the throne for himself, was revealed. Is Latveria an actual country? Hananuki asked. No, not that I'm aware of, Cementos answered. Must be one exclusive to this universe. Still, a villain taking over an entire country, Gran Torino grumbled, shaking his head before he could imagine All for One as Emperor of Japan, like the bastard likely wanted. Is he really a doctor? Boomstick asked incredulously. Well, he was expelled from college, but he just gave himself a Latverian doctorate once he was running the country, so technically yes. Wiz answered. How shameful. Abusing your authority to grant yourself such a prestigious title. Ida yelled. I can imagine quite a few doctors that make that title anything but prestigious. Nizu thought, thinking about Dr. Eggman Wily, and of course Garaki, their number suspect as the League of Villains backer, creator of the Nomu, and the one responsible for resurrecting Shirakumo into Kurogiri. What a cop-out. Those of us with degrees had to work hard for our doctorates. Boomstick whined. A world where Boomstick and Ida agree on something. Kaminari glanced up at the closed windows of the gym. Are there any meteors falling out of the sky? The students laughed while Ida gave a narrow glare at his classmate. You do not have a doctorate, was said assuredly. Yeah, check it out, Boomstick declared, holding up a diploma with poultry science on it, bearing his name. Got it in poultry science, specializing in the frying. Well, holy shit, Wiz muttered, astounded. Momo's only response was for her jaw to drop to the floor. A world where that man has a doctorate in anything is one already lost, Momo muttered darkly. Okay, melodramatic. Kyoko rolled her eyes fondly, smirking. Koda frowned, not liking Boomstick's particular doctorate. Armor. Weight. 198 pounds. / 86.2 kilograms. High-strength titanium. Nuclear-powered. Force fields. Jet boosters. Electric shockers. Energy absorption. Molecular expander. Splinter of the true cross. Anyway, Doom's armor is mostly made of titanium, but there's way more to it, Boomstick continued. With it, he's strong enough to lift buildings, survive blows from Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet, and one-shot the Incredible Hulk. Plus, it has a force field, jet boosters, and energy blasters. Force fields for protection, while possessing incredibly durable armor for greater defense, jet boosters for flight and speed, and energy blasters for long-range firepower on top of immense physical power, Melissa analyzed. The energy blasts likely could be blocked by Vader, as he did with regular laser fire, and he could harm him through his force fields if his force abilities can affect Doom's past them. Though if Doom's armor is durable enough to withstand Vader's lightsaber, Doom could potentially overwhelm Vader through physical strength, even with Vader's force and suit-enhanced strength, Izuku pointed out. Plus, even if Doom's shield can't protect him from the force, they definitely would against Vader's lightsaber, whether up close or tossed. There it is again, one-shotting that Hulk guy, Tetsu scoffed, throwing his hands up. Are we positive that the guy is even that strong if everyone can take him out? Again, a billion-ton mountain, Yui pointed out again. Plus, Wiz and Boomstick could simply be using Hulk as the benchmark for a character's greatest feats, Kendo explained more in depth. Like how Superman is the strongest hero in the DC world, but can be defeated and fought against by Batman and Lex Luthor. And you saw how Superman is. The two students and the others shuddered at the memory of the Man of Steel's death battle with Goku and how they destroyed Earth. Getting beaten by them shouldn't mean detracting from that character's strength, but highlighting the others. Well said, Kendo, Vlad King nodded, smiling proudly at his class's lead rep. And also a molecular expander, which can enlarge small objects he keeps with him. Handy for turning tiny pebbles into giant boulders, was added. Yui's eyebrow perked at what amounted to a tech-based version of her quirk. Maybe I should look into this science thing, Boomstick muttered. I'm torn between endorsing it so he can grow a functional, rational brain or condemning it, Aizawa muttered. What's wrong if the man wants to get the smarts? Present Mike chuckled. Because I'm worried about what a man who hunts squirrels using machine guns might invent with such knowledge, Aizawa answered. Yamada paused as all the terrifying and horrible possibilities played in rapid fire in his head. Fair enough, Mike coughed. The armor also has numerous methods of energy absorption and manipulation, giving him complete control over all sorts of machinery, was stated. I can see how he was able to tear apart Iron Man's suit so easily, Melissa said, flinching when imagining it happening to herself, which technically is true, being an Iron Man counterpart as well. Well, poop. Nijire pouted, realizing she would be next to useless against Doom if he could absorb her quirk's energy. If he can absorb energy, can't he just grab a lightsaber and sap it of all its energy? Snipe questioned. If he wants to show off, theoretically. Ectoplasm responded. The wiser option would be just shutting off the blade through his control of machinery. It might just be the most overpowered suit in comic history, Boomstick commented. I mean, it even has pieces of the true cross to protect against Dracula and other undead enemies. Dracula, as in the actual vampire lord Dracula, Mineta explained, hands flying up to protect his neck. Revelry in the dark, Reiko gasped with amazement, finding herself more intrigued with the villain's paranormal involvement. Her classmate Ibra was another story. How dare he? Defiling such a sacred artifact, a symbol of sacrifice, love, and holiness for his personal gain and pride. Ibra spat with hate and disgust. Even if it's done to protect and fight back against monsters. Bondo asked warily. If it were in the hands of someone noble and ordained by the Lord, it would be different, but this? In the hands of a ruthless villain full of pride and greed. Blasphemous! Ibra yelled, every sentence making the paste-firing student sink into his seat as if she were yelling right to his glue gun-like head. Magic, teleportation, time travel, dimensional travel, mystical barriers, void mind transfer, summoning, hypnosis, technological manipulation, arc lightning. It not only increases his physical strength, but also has magical abilities, Wiz began to list, which includes teleportation, mind transference, demonic summons, mystical blasts, and numerous other spells he's learned over the centuries. Teleportation and his jet boosters could mean he can have complete control of the battlefield, from aerial advantage to instantly taking his opponent off guard by warping right behind or in front of them. Izuku began analyzing in his trademark Mutterstorm. With those mystical blasts combined with his energy blasters, he could theoretically overwhelm most forms of absorption, be it from quirks or other superpowers, especially if they can only absorb certain traces of energy, like how Kaminari can only absorb electricity and not pure energy. Or could he, though? And could he absorb whatever arc lightning is? I should expand on that later. His demon summoning and par with his Doombots can make him a one-man army that could maybe overwhelm even Vader's concentration and stamina if he has to fight against multiple individuals. And if Doom can transfer and dominate someone's mind, then he must have mental resistance of his that could make Vader's mind-reading and persuasion obsolete. Mutter, mutter, mutter. Ha! Called it! Bakuga laughed out loud, snapping his finger, winning his bet on how long the nerd could last before diving into another mutter spree. If I have to listen to his muttering all the damn time, I might as well get paid for it. Hand over the cash, losers. Not fair. You knew him before UA. Kaminari scoffed, salty, yet still forked over his yen. Nijire's eyebrow twitched, her glaring shifting again toward Bakugu. Hold up, back it up a minute. Hawks yelled out, twirling his finger around as if attempting to rewind the footage. Did he just say for centuries? Yes, I said centuries, was said. Doom Time traveled to the earliest days of magic and learned all he could, before returning to the present the normal way. By waiting. That must mean that he could be hundreds, if not thousands, of years old. Ragdoll exclaimed, unnerved. It must be serious if even you are unnerved, my friend, Tiger commented. But indeed, if he has as many years of experience and mastery of his abilities, he most assuredly would be a grave threat. Ah yes, I think I'll be immortal today. Boomstick muttered out what he imagined Doom thought. But as awesome as his armor is, Doom's still a badass without it. Strengths and feats. Thinks as fast as a supercomputer. Survived Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. Armor blocked Silver Surfer's TK. Willpower beast Purple Man's telepathy. Caught Captain America's shield. Crushed a diamond with his hands. Killed a lion in one punch. While naked. Has defeated the Silver Surfer, Galactus, and the Beyonder. One time, Doom found himself stranded on another Earth, buck naked after being switched with his arch-nemesis, Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, by a Celestial. Long story. Boomstick cut himself off from explaining that context further. Anyway, he gets attacked by a lion, which he straight up killed with a single punch, then turned it into a pretty sweet suit. Koda growled, his classmates almost making it for a lion's growl. Ironically enough, the animal talker could understand why Doom did what he did, even turning the animal into clothes. He could fault the man for doing what he could to survive, but that didn't mean he had to be happy about it. So his arch-nemesis is this Mr. Fantastic, Endeavor said, cupping his chin. I was under the impression it would have been Iron Man, given how prominently he's shown confronting him. Good point, they both have suits of armor and skills and powers over technology, and one of them also has power over magic as a bonus, Toshinori agreed. I wonder what history may be between Doom and Richards. Under Doom's rule, his country, Latveria, prospered, was revealed. His people loved their new dictator, though the rest of the world was of a different opinion. Probably because he keeps trying to conquer it all, Boomstick mentioned. That is even more concerning, Tsukachi muttered, frowning. Not only is his diplomatic immunity problematic, but if Doom could rally his country's people to his cause, he could have a loyal army of followers beyond his Doombots and demons he could summon. Yes, but there is something else that is controversial about this, Nizu pointed out. If Wizard is to be believed, then Doom's rule is beneficial for his people, likely being responsible for creating better jobs, infrastructure, and security. The difficult question to ask here is, would it be better or not if Doom was deposed? Knowing his downfall might doom, ironically, Latveria's people to a harsher life. Nizu's question brought many uncomfortable frowns and stares from students and adults alike. Some, like Endeavor, Ida, and Bakugu, felt that Doom's downfall was for the better. His position as a villain and aspirations for global conquest making him a grave threat to billions more people than a small country's thousands or millions. All might lean much toward the Doom deposed route too, if only that he was biased by how much Doom made him think about all for one. To the symbol of peace, a country ruled by such a villain, no matter how good-intentioned, was still a country run by a villain who would use his own citizens as cannon fodder if he should wish it. Others had different ideas, which were uncomfortable and even spat in the face of their professions as heroes or hero helpers, but thoughts nonetheless. Nizu's comment about Doom's rule being an economic plus for the country and its people made those like Momo, Melissa, and Todoroki think carefully and deeply, pondering if Doom was the very definition of a necessary evil, one that only needed to be put down on occasion, should his world-conquering aspirations become too great. Even Izuku couldn't help but consider Doom to be the one villain where it would be bad to dethrone, especially if it meant the well-being and lives of Latveria's people to be in danger. A part of the One-for-All user recognized he was being naive, if not irrational, in prioritizing one country over the rest of the world. Still, to the green-haired teen, he felt he couldn't turn a blind eye to that country's people for such an easily exploitable and potentially manipulative concept like, for the greater good. He only had to think of villains like Overhaul and Fleck Turn to find such a concept distasteful, like they so readily used. I wanted to be a hero to save everyone. But are there people who shouldn't be saved? Izuku asked himself, wondering if Doom's defeat and Latveria's salvation would even be called as such by them. Helping people who don't want it is the essence of being a hero, but would helping them only, well, doom them? Well, whether Doom is a bad guy is a bit up for debate, was muttered. Sure, there was the one time he sacrificed the woman he loved to hell, and had her skin turned into leather armor he wore. I'm sorry, he did what to who? Setsuna exclaimed, disgusted and horrified. Forgive me if such an act doesn't automatically mean evil in my book, Jirota growled. Ditto, Kamakiri grunted, with more and more of the group nodding in agreement. But for a long time, Doom's top priority was actually rescuing his mother from damnation, was explained Doom's reasoning. And he eventually pulled it off, Boomstick stated. Izuku and Shoto felt disgusted by Doom's actions and would never justify what he did to someone he proclaimed the love of his life. But the two boys paused as they thought of their own mothers and what they would do if they were in the same situation. I swore I would get Mom out of that mental hospital, to give her a life with us where she didn't have to be afraid, Shoto remembered, frowning deeply. But if it meant being a villain, if being villain was the only way to protect Mom, Fuyumi, and Natsuo, if it meant Tuya was still alive, would I do it? If being the villain meant the people I love would be protected, would I do it? Izuku asked himself, imagining his mother, Eri, All Might, and the girls. Would I throw away my only dream, everything I ever worked for, if it meant becoming the villain of my own story? If damning myself meant that I could save everyone? Neither of them had an answer to their questions. At least they would save or admit out loud. With that off the list, Doom did what any magically powered titan of science would do. He went time-hopping to the future, Boomstick exclaimed. So, not only can he time travel to the past, but also the future, Ryukyu muttered, tensing in worry of what she might see. Doom explored thousands of possible future timelines, and what he saw convinced him he needed to take over the world, was revealed and began to explain. See, Doom truly believes he must conquer the world, as that is the only possible future freed from suffering and want. Huh! Most of the group exclaimed. And he's kinda right, Boomstick muttered in slight disbelief. I mean, even the Panther God of Wakanda backed him up, and that guy looked into like all the futures. For a world without suffering and want, the villain must win. Uraraka questioned, her face and tone showcasing her disbelief. And no, I can't believe that. Ida shook his head, denial and doubt warring visibly on his face. That makes no sense. Nizu frowned, paw cupping his furry chin. Such a complicated, controversial possibility, though, to Doom. I imagine it is confirmation and fact. Nizu hummed and contemplated to himself. A world where the greater good must come at the total victory of someone most of the world sees as a villain, both by perception and deed. This thinking forced Nizu to look at the PLF's and the HPSC's desired futures. The PLF. They aren't wrong about the heavy strictness and quirk laws or the discrimination faced toward those with mutant quirks. But what idealized world could come from total freedom without meaningful restraint and consequence? Their views on the quirkless are no less barbaric and inhuman than they find society has been to heteromorphs. And under the leadership whose only goal and desire is mindless chaos and destruction, it is a world I refuse to imagine is right. And the Commission. Nizu found it a bitter pill to swallow to imagine anything from those similarly quirkless narcissists and greedy politicians is right, but he couldn't deny that for society to run and not fall to chaos, there has to be structure, a system, laws, and the people to enforce them, but there is a difference between enforcement in order to tyranny and oppression. But that leads to the biggest question yet. If such a similar villain were in our world, a villain that wasn't the PLF, the Commission, or, God forbid, All for One, would I abandon everything I stood for a world closest to paradise? Nizu wanted to imagine his answer would be a firm no, that he would stick to his conviction and fight for heroes and the light. But deep down, logic and truth spoke differently. Sometimes blind devotion to a single cause, no matter how noble, can be nothing more than biased arrogance. And that could be seen as the wrong way as much as our villains themselves. However, despite his overwhelming power, intellect, and intentions, Doom is extremely arrogant to a fault, was pointed out Doom's greatest weakness. It's ridiculous, I can't even count how many times Doom had world domination within his grasp, and then dropped the ball. Boomstick grumbled, annoyed. I mean, one time he stole the godly power cosmic from Silver Surfer, and still lost, because Mr. Fantastic tricked him into flying into a power cosmic sucking force field. As the old saying goes, pride comes before the fall, Miruko commented. And the proudest always fall the hardest. That is surprisingly astute for a battle junkie barbarian of a woman, Edgeshot muttered with reluctant acceptance. Oh gee, I'm honored to be praised by a hard-ass shinobi wannabe, Miruko murmured out with obvious sarcasm. Just because I like a fight doesn't mean I'm stupid. Doom has also gathered many of Marvel's greatest supervillains into groups like the Masters of Evil, and once succeeded in stealing the all-powerful Odin Force from the All-Father himself, was revealed. With this power, he became near omnipotent, conquering the world, slaughtering, reviving, and brainwashing Earth's heroes into his brainwashed servants, and capable of destroying nuclear warheads with a flick of his wrist. The group's eyes widened into saucers at seeing Doom explode nuclear bomb, carrying jets with just a clench of his fist, or the dozens of superheroes lying defeated and or dead before Doom began resurrecting and turning them to his side. What was it you said about such power? Fat Gum asked Edgeshot, popcorn falling uneaten out of his slack-jawed mouth. And yet he still got his ass handed to him by a group of heroes, including Spider-Man, Thor, Captain America, and Wolverine, and then got sent to permanent timeout by Thor's pops when he got his mojo back, Boomstick said. Of course Midori's and All Might's counterparts would be the ones to do the impossible. Mina shook her head with a fond smile. Doubly so with Captain America among them. Mina, Izuku whined quietly, blushing red from her praise. And there's that Wolverine once more. Momo noted the presence of the mutant whose healing factor Deadpool's was based on and who clearly had razor-sharp metal claws protruding from his knuckles. I wonder who he is. And don't get me started on his rivalry with the Fantastic Four, especially with the man he hates the most, Reed Richards, who's not only the smartest guy on Earth but who also has a knack for snagging Susan Storm as his wife, someone who Doom was also interested in. Boomstick further explained Doom's history with the Fantastic Four. Move on already, man. Ah, so their rivalry is as it is with all men. Which one is the bigger man? Recovery Girl summarized harshly. I wouldn't put it like that, but pretty much, Midnight shrugged. Clearly. Just as much as you forget who is also in attendance. Aizawa noted, glancing toward Eri and Kuta. Call it whatever you wish, but their rivalry over intelligence and a woman's love shows precisely Doom's greatest weakness, Endeavor declared. Careful provocation could be our best bet in defeating him. Yeah, because provoking a near-immortal magical tech wizard king in any way can be considered careful, Hawk stated in air quotes. Actually, he did, Liz said. He even helped Susan Storm Richards birth her baby daughter on the condition that he be named the godfather and the right to name the girl, Valeria, whom he treats like a daughter. I guess even he has a heart in there, Rin sighed. There is, it's just black as charcoal, Yui muttered. What you mean to say is that he has a soft spot beneath all that armor and megalomania. And even then, most of that megalomania he can back it up, Kirishima admitted nervously. Bakugo perked his eyebrows at the discovery of another major weakness of Doom with that girl, only to immediately deny whatever plan or option using the girl against Doom his brain was planning. Honestly, I don't know which angry parent figure I'd want to face, Bakugo thought, sweating profusely at choosing whether to fight a pissed-off Doom or Deku if Eri was threatened, multiple crackling sparks erupting from his hand. Doom even was close to burying the hatchet with the 4 when he was about to marry his fiancée, was added. Emphasis on close to, Boomstick pointed out. He found out on the altar that his fiancée had slept with Johnny Storm, Susan's playboy brother, before the wedding. Really dropped the ball hard there, Johnny. Jiro's face palm was as loud as a gun. That complete utter moron, Jiro yelled. Their greatest enemy, hell, the world's biggest threat, could have buried the hatchet with them, maybe become a better guy and not be a villain, and that douche ruined it? I guess the only hatchet Doom now wants to bury is one in this Johnny Storm's skull. Karo, Azui croaked. Izuku and Bakugo flinched as the painful past reared its ugly head for the umpteenth time. White Day. The two remembered Bakugo's perhaps cruelest prank on Midoriya, where the former convinced the latter's crush to string the nerd along with a Valentine's Day gift and promise of more come White Day a month later, only for Izuku's gifts to be squashed like trash, rotten milk dunked onto him, half the school laughing and kicking the green-haired teen while he was down. The real knife to the heart was when that same crush kissed Bakugo in front of Izuku and kicked him in the stomach as she said those words that haunted Midoriya to this day. Who would ever like a useless, quirkless Deku like you? Izuku shook his head, scoffing quietly. Idiot, she can't hurt you, not anymore, not unless you let her. Izuku reminded himself. I have friends now, mentors, girls that like me, much less actively tolerate my presence, and a daughter who thinks the world of me. Izuku softly smiled as he remembered his conversation with Nijire 2 days ago, his heart beating loudly at the memory of her hug and words. I'm loved, I'm wanted. Bakugo's snarling face came to mind, making Izuku's frown reappear, and his emerald eyes glowed dangerously. And anyone who says otherwise can go to hell. Bakugo's eyes appeared hollow as he remembered that memorable day, if that was the right word for it. No, traumatizing was the right word. It's just that he wasn't the one afflicted with the trauma. I did him a favor. That extra was bad news. A slut through and through who agreed to that plan at the hint that she could blow me. I did Deku a favor, letting him down easy. Bakugo, or perhaps whatever part inside the former bully that remained, that justified himself as he always did before, when an inkling of guilt tried leaking out from the depths of his soul. Now, that guilt wasn't a leak anymore, it was a whole burst pipe, and it burned through his body like acid. Never the one at fault. Always his. Always making him the villain of my story because I couldn't accept he might have been a better hero than I could ever be. Bakugo's hair covered his eyes, trying to hide his inner turmoil and guilt while the image of Deku standing proud and strong like All Might flashed mockingly at him. And I was right to be afraid. Unknowingly, both boys were observed by 2 attentive students. Nijire's knowing gaze at her Zuzu was full of sadness and unshed tears, as she knew exactly what he must be feeling. When she saw that pained expression brushed away with a confident and assured glare, Nijire felt pride and love, desperately wanting to rush over and hug the bejesus out of her Zuzu. Then her gaze shifted to the ash-blonde teen that was her Zuzu's main tormentor, and love turned to hate, and pride burned into disgust. Hato couldn't see his eyes, but knew from that frown that he had seen the change in Zuzu's face and didn't like it. He didn't like that Deku was strong and the better hero. Better than he will ever be. And I'll see to it that is the case, Nijire declared, her body almost buzzing with her quirk's energy. I'll stand by the hero Deku's side as he becomes the greatest hero in the world. And you will be seen for the monster you are and always be. Unlike the self-assuredness of the third-year student, Kirishima stared at Midoriya and Bakugo with confusion and suspicion. Midoriya looked pained. I mean, yeah, that definitely sucks for Doom, but Midobro looked like he sympathized with him. As if he went through the same thing, Kirishima thought. His worries momentarily relaxed when he saw Midoriya brush off that painful look for a stare and presence he couldn't help but call manly. Then Kirishima looked at Bakugo, and those worries and suspicions grew 10 times greater. I know that frown, the way he tries to hide the pain and emotion in his eyes. He's upset too, but why? Kirishima glanced between the screen and his Bakubro. For Doom. Did he go through the same thing too? Or is he upset for Midobro? They knew each other before UA. Maybe he was there when whatever Midobro went through happened, and he helped him through it like a true bro. Kirishima blinked and shook his head, quietly chuckling. God damn it, now I'm muttering like Midobro. Bakubro would probably tear me a new one for trying to copy Midoriya, Kirishima reasoned. The humorous thoughts faded as he still stared at Bakugo's frown. I don't know what's going on, but if there's one thing I know, it's a friend when they are hurting in trouble. Kirishima's mind flashed back to Mina and their classmates. Confronted by the shadowy figure he knew now as Gigantomachia, Kirishima fought through shivers of terror that came with that memory, hardening inwardly as he would outwardly. And I'm gonna be there to help them, no matter what, like a true hero would do. Like a true manly bro would help his best bro. But if Dr. Doom could just keep his ego in check, nobody could ever stand in his way, was said. Then let us hope it forever stays that way, Toshinori muttered, thinking the same way about his arch-nemesis stuck in Tartaro's prison, still wearing that smug, ego-fueled smile on his face. Your plan to destroy them has failed, Master, the servo-guard robot reported. Failed? Dr. Doom questioned, his offended eyes glaring out of his mask. Narrowing his eyes, Doom concentrated, causing the servo-guard robot to explode. Dr. Doom does not fail, Doom proclaimed. The group saw Dr. Doom as far less sympathetic than his opponent, yet also much more controversial and morally complicated. Their brains and heroic convictions still clashed over the moral quandary that was Dr. Doom's position as a world-conquering villain, ruler of a thriving country, and potentially righteous crusader whose future was projected to be peaceful and right. However, what most agreed on was that the man was ruthless and willfully cruel, even if that cruelty was in service of what he believed to be the greater good. Another thing that was unanimously agreed upon was that Dr. Doom was a powerful threat and fighter, with his mastery of the mystic arts and technology, something still confusing and paradoxical to the more logic-oriented group members, such as David, Momo, and Ida. All right, the combatants are set, was stated. Let's end this debate once and for all. It's time for a death BATTT, the boomstick roared. As the device paused the video to scan for the fighters' counterparts, the group voted among themselves on who would come out victorious. Those who would end up voting for Darth Vader included Ibra and Izuku. The latter of the two green-haired teens felt torn between his choices, a part of him believing Doom might hold the overall power advantage, but couldn't help but choose for his counterpart's father, sympathetic of the Chosen One's life and struggles and inspired by his act of redemption, wondering if he could be able to turn villains who were lost or broken into finding a better path. Ibra, meanwhile, felt she had no choice in voting for the fallen Chosen One from how similarly his story played as a darker tale of her lord, and as a blatant refusal to vote for the son of a satanic witch who defiled the true cross by placing a piece of it in his armor. The Flame Hero's official reasoning stood that Vader's powerful connection to the Force would be the winning edge for the Sith Lord to take victory. However, Endeavor could not help but think of himself when viewing Skywalker's descent into darkness over his desires, much like he abused his family into the broken state, that it was all for his goal of surpassing all might. Endeavor figured if someone like Anakin could be redeemed, could he? All Might thought similarly to his successor, more comfortable in voting for the more redeemable and excusable, in his opinion, of the two fighters, while thinking of Shigaraki, pondering if there was a chance to save his mentor's grandson if Vader could be redeemed. Meanwhile, the Dark Lord of the Sith likewise received a vote from Hawks, sympathizing with Anakin's unfair treatment from the Jedi Council, and saw a kindred spirit who too longed for freedom, whether it be through the sky or among the stars. May and David Shield would ultimately cast their votes for the Sith Lord, both finding his tech more rational and logical to imagine and visualize than the combo of science and sorcery of Dr. Doom, with May also inspired by young Anakin's protege level of engineering. Koda's vote for Vader was basically a personal jab at the Latverian ruler, fueled by his hatred of squirrels and the fact that he killed a lion. Kamakiri's love of lightsabers earned him a vote for Vader, and Shinsu's vote came from Vader's force persuasion ability. Aoyama likewise voted for Anakin, though kept his reasoning to himself, hiding his conflicted face from the group. Reiko would be the only one among the Dark Revelry trio to vote for the Sith Lord, though the decision was a heavy one. While she liked Doom's arcane and supernatural powers and history, she felt too inspired by Vader's force abilities being so similar to her quirk and finding his tragic history of a chosen one falling to darkness, only to arise through the love of a father for his son, beautifully similar to a Greek tragedy of old. Momo likewise couldn't help but be suckered into voting for the Jedi-turned-Sith for his tragic history and fall for the sake of trying to save the love of his life and, at the time, unborn children. Dr. Doom's most notable voters included Nizu and Bakugu. The rodent principal of UA felt the ruler of Latveria had more firepower and useful abilities compared to the Sith Lord, and felt obliged to vote for the fighter who had garnered him quite the stimulating moral quandary. Meanwhile, the explosive teen's vote was similar to Endeavor's, outwardly because of Doom's power, and inwardly personal. Bakugu felt a kindred spirit with Doom, mainly because of their shared history of rivalry. Doom's with Reed Richards and his with Deku. To add insult to injury, every time Bakuga blinked, he saw Izuku in Doom's place while Johnny Storm morphed into himself. Katsuki felt that if there was any chance he had of making things right, no matter if Izuku wanted it or not, he had to vote for Doom. As mentioned prior, Tokoyami and Korwaro voted for the Lord of Latveria, unlike their female colleague. The two would find Doom's history with the supernatural side of the Marvel Universe. His power to summon demons, arcane mastery, supernatural repelling armor, and dark, brooding complexion all too fascinating, or in their words, revelry in the dark. Kirishima and Tetsu would also vote for the literal tech wizard for his impressive and powerful armor, finding it more durable and manly than Vader's dark armor. Melissa and Power Loader cast their votes for the Master of Science and Sorcery, more tolerant in accepting the abstract, confusing powers into the paradoxical mix with science and technology, the latter additionally for Doom's Doombots, while the former felt the same, though tempered. Inspiration from Dr. Doom, as she did with Iron Man Kaminari, voted for Doom based on his listed arc lightning abilities and against the cybernetic Sith Lord and his weakness to electricity. Yui's vote was based on Doom's shrinking tech, Nijire's for Doom's ability to fire and absorb energy, as well as fly, and Mirio's was earned by Doom's teleportation and powerful physical strength. Shoto's vote landed on the ruler of Latveria. His sympathy won from Doom's similarly desperate and single-minded desire to save his mother from hell was to the time he was stubbornly determined to be a hero without his fire half, and his current desire to free his mother from the mental hospital to live a free and comfortable life of peace. Multiversal counterparts detected. The device reported that it had finished its scan. Anakin Skywalker aka Darth Vader. Multiversal counterpart 1. Tenko Shimura aka Tomura Shigaraki. The reaction was shared by most of the group, who had wide, disbelieving eyes and slack jaws. That guy, that villain with the crusty-ass skin, is supposed to be that world's chosen one? Miruko questioned incredulously. This is similar to his other counterpart Siegfried, Momo realized. Another man who was corrupted and twisted by darkness into a monster, and who ultimately redeemed himself by standing up against the ones who turned on them, Ochiko added, remembering Siegfried's eventual freedom from and fight against Nightmare. But why are they both Shigaraki's counterparts? It could just be a coincidence, or looking too into their more villainous personas, Azui reasoned. Or what? Koji asked. Or there may be more to Shigaraki's life than we give him credit for, Azui responded. That there must have been something in Shigaraki's life that turned him into the villain he is today. Izuku frowned, his eyes glancing down contemplatively as he thought about the leader of the League of Villains, the very man who had tormented his class and their society ever since his debut at the USJ. Izuku can still remember Shigaraki's crazy red eyes, burning with such malice and insanity that it was hard to imagine anything else residing inside. Izuku vividly recalled Shigaraki's angry, confused rant over why Stain was beloved, and himself despised, The phantom sensations of Shigaraki's fingers on his throat, alongside the haunting image of Shigaraki's smile full of mad glee and his declaration to kill All Might and Izuku too. And he's the counterpart to my own counterpart's father. Izuku questioned the universe. On the one hand, the reveal was a relief, assured that Shigaraki wasn't, in any way, his father. Hell, the villain was only 5 or so years older than at most, and that his fear of seeing his true father's face was avoided. On the other hand, Izuku found it hard to believe that the same man who declared with such insane delight that he would destroy all of hero society could be compared to a tragic, fallen hero like Anakin. Unless that's the point, Izuku pondered, staring at the two images of the Shigaraki on the screen. One his present dry-skin version and the other a nervous, scared-looking little boy, Tenko Shimura. Izuku recalled his earlier thoughts and reasons for choosing Vader as the fighter he wanted to win, because Vader was proof that no matter how far someone could fall into the dark, one single, selfless act could bring them back to the light. Why believe the same couldn't be done with Tomura Shigaraki? Maybe there is a chance for him. But there is one true question left to be asked. Meanwhile, Toshinori Yagi stared blankly at the screen. His face as unmoving as stone, hiding the intense emotions roiling inside him. Gran Torino's words of wisdom and caution echoed in his mind as he felt the man watching him out of the corner of his eye. Shigaraki's numerous crimes played through his head, while the frightened eyes of Tenko Shimura, the boy Tomura Shigaraki once was, appeared before him. His mind tried to picture what that scared boy must have endured, what vulnerable state he was in before the devil himself found and twisted him for his own purpose. If what the video that Zayden showed Jiro and the girls is true, then Tomura Shigaraki is truly just a pawn in all for one's game. Puppet. A vessel. Toshinori thought as he began to think exactly the same thoughts as his successor. Could he be saved and turned if he were told exactly what his master had in store for him? Would he even believe us? No, the true question to be asked isn't whether Shigaraki can be saved. It's whether he would want to be saved. Victor Von Doom aka Dr. Doom. Multiversal Counterpart 1. All for one. Toshinori's stone-like expression cracked under the glare aimed at All for One's smiling face. I know your plan. I know what you groomed Shigaraki for. And I will not allow your plans to come to fruition, All Might declared. Unlike your counterpart, there is no future where your victory is a better world. Vader is tragic and lost. Doom is complex and good-intentioned. But you're nothing but pure evil. A cancer that has cursed this world for far too long. An evil we will smash into dust. Multiversal Counterpart 2. Izuku Midoriya. Toshinori's glare broke again into wide, disbelieving eyes. What? If the exclamation that followed Shigaraki's reveal as Vader was loud and shocking, it was nothing to the sight of Dr. Doom's face next to Izuku Midoriya, declaring the green bean of 1A as the counterpart to the Lord of Latveria. Everyone's eyes were on the frozen verdant-haired teen, eyes full of shock and disbelief. How is that even possible? Hagakure exclaimed, completely and utterly lost and confused. Midori, a villain? Mina muttered in disbelief. The pink-skinned girl didn't mean for her words to sound so accusatory, but her mind was too busy unraveling in on itself with such a ridiculous, absurd claim that she was seeing in front of her. For once, Momo had nothing. The raven-haired heiress couldn't come up with an explanation for what she was shown. She couldn't believe that there could be any world out there, even in an infinite multiverse, that the boy she loved, a boy who was repeatedly shown that he was the most selfless, kind, and heroic person she had ever known, could be a villain like Dr. Doom. Ochiko and Setsuna stared, stunned, their hands unconsciously gripping Izuku's clothes as if they and Izuku himself were a lifeline. The rest of the girls in their sisterhood reacted with the same disbelief, recalling the unbreakable video and all the heroic feats their cinnamon roll had pulled off, which completely clashed with what the device claimed. The guys were not much better. Those in 1A and most within 1B held similar reactions. Shoto and Ida were completely baffled in disbelief. The former shook his head slowly while the latter's arm chopping went into overdrive, physically expressing his incredulity. Others like Kirishima and Kaminari shook their heads like Shoto, unwilling to accept such a claim, with even Tokoyami muttering that Midoriya's light is too bright to be consumed with such dark villainy. Many of the students who heard him nodded in agreement. Even the adults were left dumbfounded by the reveal. The ones who knew Midoriya the best, from most of the UA teachers to the pros he interacted with, including Endeavor, could not accept the idea of the heroic boy as a villain. Aizawa's tired eyes widened and became fully alert, outright refusing such an illogical conclusion. David's shield blinked multiple times, as if trying to wipe away a crazy hallucination. His vivid memory of Midoriya's victory over Wolfram, and how the inventor saw so much of All Might in the boy, stealing his mind from every dark, paranoid thought threatening to surface or take root. Others were of a different mindset. Students like Monoma and Kamakiri glared at Midoriya with suspicion, while pros like Edgeshot, Vlad King, and even Ryukyu narrowed their eyes, wondering if this was some subtle hint pointing toward Midoriya as the rumored UA traitor. Tashinori and Bakugu looked like they were in a nightmare. Denial sprang in near absolute fury at the idea that Izuku Midoriya could possibly be a villain, either because he was too kind-hearted and selfless to have an evil bone in his body, or because they knew the boy too well to even consider the green-haired successor of One for All to ever be in league with the villains. Suddenly, though, their minds flashed with terrible daydreams. All Might recalled every moment when Midoriya snapped and reacted angrily toward Mineta. His intentions true in his desire to stand up for the girls he cared about, who had been harassed multiple times by Minoru Mineta for so long. The sight of Midoriya putting the fear of God in the short boy was horrifying. The boy's glare, the way he stood, even the very aura about him, was so hauntingly familiar. The only person he remembered with such a terrifying aura was the last person he could ever imagine Midoriya being related to. As for Bakugu, his daydreams felt like the universe was taunting him. All his bullying, all his beatings, every mocking beratement or threat he made on Izuku's well-being, even his life played on rapid fire, like the worst horror film designed to drive him mad. As they played, he could see his mind conjuring a horrible image. A world on fire, buildings in ruins, UA's golden letters among the rumble alongside the unmoving bodies of his classmates, pro-heroes, and even his parents, mad laughter and menacing roars sounding, the figures of the villains they belonged to hidden behind the flames. And at the center of it all, himself, Katsuki Bakugu, laying in a pool of his own blood. His arms nothing but bleeding stumps, a boot pressing him down, belonging to a dark-suited figure. His verdant hair darker and sharper. His respirator, twisted into a scowling facsimile of the one he knew, masking the man's lower half of his face. One of the man's eyes emerald green as always, but now glowing like acid and wildfire. The other red like blood-made stone. Katsuki Bakugo panted heavily, struggling to catch his breath as he stared up at the dark vision of Deku, a monster born from his own making. The figure loomed over his beaten form, eyes filled with contempt and disgust, extending a hand crackling with black and red lightning toward him. Izuku Midoriya was not much better. The boy felt like his entire world had turned upside down as he saw his face next to Doom's. Didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense to the green-haired hero fanboy. Izuku felt the eyes of everyone staring at him, paranoia morphing those stares of concern and shock into suspicion, distrust, and disgust, eyes that felt so familiar to him. Bakugo's taunting words that he would never become a hero played alongside All Might's initial rejection of Izuku's dream on that fated rooftop. The face of himself on the screen seemed to shift and morph into something else in his eyes. First, into gentle criminal's tired, defeated face. Then Fleck turns bitter, hateful glare, Stain's mad, zealous growl, all for one's evil smile, and then to Shigaraki's insane grin. Finally, the last image he saw was himself, but warped beyond recognition. Verdant hair now darker and sharper. His gas mask, styled in an homage to All Might's smile, deformed into a raging scowl. His round, emerald eyes like his mother's, now sharpened into glowing daggers, one poison green, the other ruby red. Izuku couldn't breathe, his lungs refusing to work as the hallucination of his dark double stared at him with contempt and disgust, spreading his arms out openly, daring him to see his full visage as black-red lightning sparked around him. Meanwhile, The same terrified and conflicted blonde among the group was as stunned as the rest of his classmates over this unbelievable development. However, something else sparked in his mind. Opportunity, fueled by desperation. This is my chance. Everyone must be suspecting the worst about Midoriya. It's human nature. The desperate blonde contemplated desperately. If I play it right, everyone will see Midoriya as the traitor, not me. I'll be in the clear. He might end up in Tartaros, right where he would want him. Close, alone, and vulnerable. My parents could be safe. The blonde opened his mouth, ready to rain down the final blow to kickstart Midoriya's downfall. But he couldn't. Every rise of his mouth, every breath he took to yell out, the words failed to leave his tongue. The traitor's eyes widened, desperation turning to panic. His chest heaving in exertion, but he couldn't say a word. Not when his shoulder felt the phantom touch of his comforting hand. Not when he remembered his emerald eyes staring at him with unmatched kindness and friendship. Not when the memory of Izuku Midoriya's smile flashed in his mind, smiling so brilliantly at him, telling him he was his friend, that a lowly piece of scum like him belonged. Finally, the silence, the self-imposed hallucinations, the glares, and prepared accusations ceased with one person's laughter. Bah-ha-ha-ha-ha. Miruko bellowed out a laugh that rang through the gym, stunning every student, hero, teacher, and guest. Oh my god. This is fucking riot. Ah-ha-ha-ha. Miruko continued laughing, so hard she wrapped her arms around her aching stomach. Is there something funny to be found here, Miruko? Shot asked, annoyed. Fuck yeah, there is. Those looks on your stupid faces. Miruko chuckled out, sticking her head out challengingly toward Edgeshot. How you idiots look like you're a second away from tackling the dude and accusing him of being some secret villain or some shit. Honestly, it's so pathetic, it's laughable. Excuse me. Mount Lady yelled, offended. How is this situation stupid? When has that device ever been wrong? If it says that the kid is a villain's counterpart then that's what he is, a counterpart to a villain, not the villain himself. Miruko cut Mount Lady off, scoffing. I'm not saying the thing is making up bullshit, but since when did we start saying if the guy on screen is a villain, then the other him is one too? I mean, the Monoma guy was said to be Starscream's counterpart, and we didn't chuck the pompous prick into a bus straight to Tartaros, now did we? Mount Lady's surprised blinks were mimicked by the rest of the group, some not too stunned by Miruko's words, glancing over at Monoma. The blonde himself was too stunned to properly retort at being called a pompous prick. His eyes darting to look at nothing as his mind recalled the 16th death battle they watched, the one where the traitorous, villainous Stars, Cream was his counterpart, and how afraid he was that everyone would automatically treat him like he was villain too. Just like I'm doing to Midoriya now. Monoma realized, horror and shame striking deep in his chest for his hypocrisy. Hawks blinked his eyes a final time before shaking his head and beginning to laugh. A fake one, but he was trained to make his fakest laughs seem genuine, and the group seemed to buy it as they stared at him. Oh yeah, that is hilarious. Hawks chuckled. Pretty dumb of us to start treating that thing's comparison as gospel. What are we suddenly gonna believe that Bakugu is a female pony from Wonderland? That the May girl is a two-tailed, talking boy fox? Me, some badass future ninja with a horde of robot pets? Actually, that would be pretty cool. Forget what I said. Bow to the superior ninja. Shot growled. You are no ninja. Exactly. Hawks declared, pointing his finger at the stunned hero. By your words, I'm no ninja. The Monoma kid isn't an evil, traitor robot, and Midoriya, down there, isn't some secret evil dictator running around in a green cloak and a metal suit. The device scans for counterparts, people that have things in common with the fighters, but they're just that, aren't they, comparisons? And maybe that comparison is nothing more than the little dude has a big brain in his head like Doom's. Right. Am I right, or am I right? The group was left stunned by the winged heroes and the rabbit hero's logic, but they couldn't deny that it made sense. In an instant, suspicious glares and sharp accusations shifted to sheepish looks and quiet apologies. Disbelief, fear, and concern for the green-haired teen melted into relieved sighs and eased shoulders. The dark images and daydreams of Izuku, Katsuki, and Toshinori blinked away, not fully faded, but dismissed for the time being. Both our number 2 and number 5 heroes are correct, Mizu announced, nodding, standing up on the top of his couch. It is foolish of us to turn on each other over little more than a comparison between ourselves and individuals from different worlds who live different lives and think in different ways. It is the actions of our present and past that must be what is judged on a person's character. And the actions I find in Izuku Midoriya are nothing short of heroic and good. You have my sincerest apologies for any distress you may have suffered from this development, Mr. Midoriya. Mizu bowed to Midoriya before switching to Monoma. And you have our apologies as well, Mr. Monoma, if you had felt the same way back then. As well if we did not offer the same consideration. With the word of the intelligent animal winning over the last of the group, many bowed in apology to the two boys. Monoma stared at them all, stunned, before composing himself, coughing. Why yes, thank you for the apology. Monoma nodded, doing his best not to look relieved. Eyes drifted to Izuku, who still stared surprised and unblinkingly at the group. Deku? Ochako questioned, eyes worried. Izuku blinked and gave a short shake of his head, registering Ochiko's worried eyes, as with the rest of the girls, guys and adults. Why yeah, thanks. It's dash. Izuku froze, eyes widening a smidge, stopping himself before he could say that it was nothing. No, something in him didn't like saying that. Was it anger? Self-respect? Izuku didn't know, but he knew deep down that it wasn't. He could imagine most of the group, save for the girls, All Might, Shoto, Ida, Shinso, Maruko, Hawks and others, as the same tall, haunting, smiling facsimiles of his Aldera classmates, that the sudden switch that some of the rest saw him over this was too sudden and too painful to be nothing, and that he was not okay. Forget about it, Izuku said, staring away, tiredly. Let's just move on. The response was not what everyone expected. They expected Izuku to be his cheerful self again, to say that it was nothing, that he wasn't mad, everything was good, a misunderstanding, and flash that adorable blinding smile. What they got instead was the face of someone who was disappointed in them, but didn't want to make a further fuss about it. Someone who was used to this, but didn't like that it happened again. Setsuna and the girls glanced between Izuku and themselves with deep worry and concern. Shaking his head, Izuku looked up toward Hawks and Maruko, offering a smile, a sincere one, and far less forced, but no less heartwarming. Thank you, Hawks, Maruko, for saying all that, Izuku said. Miruko's cheeks turned slightly red, taken aback by the sincere smile and scent Midoriya gave off. And no problem, Miruko huffed, looking away with a pout. I just hate when people act stupid. What she said, kid? Hawks grinned and waved at Midoriya. Inwardly, though, Hawks was worried. Mizu, Endeavor, and All Might said this kid was no traitor, and a great asset, perhaps one of our greatest. Who am I to argue when all three endorse him? Hawks noticed that Midoriya hadn't completely shaken off the experience, and he couldn't blame him. What person would be okay if suddenly many of your classmates, friends, and idols almost started accusing you of being a villain and a traitor? If they are right, we need this kid on our side. He's an ace, and we can't suddenly start tossing away our best cards before the game. The biggest game even starts. Izuku felt a tug at his clothes, looking to see it was Eri, staring up worryingly and sadly. I believe in you, Papa, Eri said, her voice in a light whimper. I knew you weren't a bad man like Mr. Doom. I never doubted. Izuku's eyes softened, relighting a bit of the emerald glow in his eyes. Thank you, daughter, Izuku said with slight hesitation. Eri's eyes widened before brightening with stars in her eyes. The white-haired girl immediately launched herself onto Izuku's lap and hugged her surrogate father, Izuku hugging her back. Even if the world turns against me, as long as I have you, I'm good, Izuku thought. With no more counterparts to be revealed, and not wanting any more awkward tension to continue, May pressed the play button to continue the video onto the death battle itself. The video continued with the Imperial March theme playing as Darth Vader stood in the TIE fighter dock on board the Death Star, the planet-destroying superweapon floating out of reach of the planet Felucia's orbit. Ochako and 13 gasped in wonder at the sight of the alien planet and stars visible outside the Death Star, ignoring the grave threat posed by the planet-killing station. A Viper probe droid hovered toward the Dark Lord of the Sith, projecting a hologram message from an Imperial officer. Mayan Power Loader perked up. The former wrote down the design and utility of the droid, both of them pondering over the practical applications of such a robot, whether in hero work, training sessions, or police gear. Lord Vader, we ambushed rebels orbiting Felucia, but Skywalker escaped. Again, the officer reported reluctantly. I apologize, I shouldn't have been so hasty to begin dash. The officer's rushed apology was abruptly silenced as he clutched his throat, eyes wide with panic, choking under the grip of Vader's furious force choke. An unwise decision, Darth Vader growled unremorsefully. Izuku winced, a slight guilt of being responsible for the man's impending death welling up, before shaking it away. The man was an officer working for the Empire, and his counterpart's capture was a clearly worse outcome than the man's demise. Additionally, Izuku's hand rubbed his neck. The phantom sensation of Shigaraki's fingers likewise choked him back at the mall during his zealous self-revelation of his main goal. Before Vader could end the man's life, Dr. Doom marched into the hologram's recording, the Imperial March theme awkwardly quieting while Doom grabbed the officer by the neck, manually choking the rest of the soldier to death. This farce is over, Dr. Doom declared. Did he just choke the dude to death and steal Vader's kill? Sun asked, eyes blinking incredulously. Why? Just to rob the satisfaction of killing the officer for himself. Pretty much, Monoma nodded. An act of pride meant to mock and belittle Vader's power by killing him quicker than the Dark Lord's power. Yep, that is a level of pettiness and pride I come to expect from All for One. All Might nodded, only to wince at the reminder of Doom's other counterpart. Glancing subtly at young Midoriya, All Might still couldn't imagine that there would be any version of his successor that could be in any shape or form similar to the quirk-stealing villain or the ruler of Latveria. The flash of his dark Deku hallucination flashed in his mind again before quickly shaking it away. Hound Dog sniffed the air again, growling in suspicion. There it is again, that same smell, the one I can't figure out where it's coming from. The dog hero growled in his mind, the smell just recognizable enough that he remembered picking it up multiple times throughout the videos, but subtle enough that he couldn't pinpoint an exact location. Even in those moments when it manifested strongly, like right now and a few moments prior, the scent and its owner still eluded Hound Dog. I need to report this to Nizu as soon as possible, if he hasn't picked it up himself already. Doom disappeared in a flash of white light, and the recording ended. Immediately, a purple portal manifested into the air, with Doom hovering down it and into the station, sitting confidently on a floating throne. Doom has arrived, Ryukyu muttered grimly. I imagine he's trademarked and says it every time he arrives somewhere, Miruko snorted. Hell, being the ruler of an entire country. He could actually do that. Melissa frowned. Something feels fishy about this, Melissa thought, a feeling in her gut speaking to her as she thought back and forth between how Doom teleported and how he appeared through that portal. Doom fired an energy blast, destroying the probe droid and forcing Vader to jump back. Doom landed on the ground, arms crossed confidently. Bow before me, Doom demanded. Don't underestimate the power of the Force, Darth Vader declared, taking out and igniting his red lightsaber. Here we go, Bondo muttered nervously. Now that I think of it, this is technically just like Luke versus Harry. A Force user with a lightsaber fighting against a wizard, sort of. Kamakiri chuckled shortly. Makes me all the surer how this battle's gonna end. Yui rolled her eyes. When will they learn? Yui asked herself, wondering when her classmates would stop tempting fate with their premature declarations. Fight. Doom started the match flying backwards while firing multiple electrical bolts at his opponent. Landing in a crouch, Doom's body charged up in yellow energy before rocketing forward from his jetpack. Interesting tactics, Ectoplasm muttered, rubbing his chin. Backing away to gain more room while firing at the same time to keep his opponent from chasing after him, followed up by launching himself back at his foe at high speeds. Probably wants to disorient Vader with unpredictable attacks while testing his defenses, Fat Gum analyzed. Vader slashed his lightsaber, deflecting the electric bolts quickly and easily. "I can sense it," Vader muttered, thrusting his hand outward. Instantly, the Sith Lord slowed and ceased Doom's approach with the Force before the green-cloaked villain could strike. "There are those hyper-focused senses through the Force ability," Setsuna frowned. "Seriously, if I had to go up against them, there's no way I could sneak up on them." "Hey, no need to beat yourself too bad there, Kohai," Mirio chuckled good-naturedly. "If I had my quirk, I don't think even I could sucker punch Vader or his son. They'd probably sense me before I could even come out of the floor. That is, if permeation couldn't mask you from the Force," Izuku pointed out, pulling out his notebook containing notes on Mirio and his quirk. "Permeation allowed you to phase through practically everything, including light, sound, and oxygen. The way Wizard and Boomstick describe how the Force works as an energy field that encompasses and binds through all living things. And through these midichlorians, there is a chance that your quirk could allow you to phase through them as well. Light is a form of energy, much like this Force, and if you could travel past the former, there is nothing to say you couldn't phase through the Force too, potentially making you immune, if only briefly, from a Jedi's or Sith senses or their abilities. Although given that it resides in one's cells, maybe even permeation might not phase through them." Izuku would dive into another incoherent muttering phase. "Hee hee, there he goes again," Mirio chuckled, mentally cataloging Midoriya's theory on being able to phase through the Force as a useful, if only theoretical, attribute to his still rewound quirk, hoping to test it one day. Against a friendly Jedi in a spare, preferably. Setsuna pouted, mildly miffed that the boy she liked complimented and praised Mirio's quirk, and did not do the same for her when she was the one who whined about being useless against a Force wielder. Still, the sight of Midoriya acting like his usual self brought a smile of relief and joy to her. "As much as I find your muttering cute," Setsuna pulled on Izuku's ear, causing the boy to yelp out of his muttering. "Save the adorable muttering till after the fight, Green Bean." Using the Force, Vader Force pushed Doom back across the docking bay, only for Doom to quickly recover, rising high and swiftly flying at Vader at rapid speed. Doom cocked his fist back, the armored appendage charging with electricity, before launching it forward, striking against Vader's lightsaber in a mighty clash. The short contest of strength broke with Vader swiping the blade, knocking Doom backwards. Vader leapt into the air and swung down onto Doom, blocking the attack with his metal fist, sparks flying from the impact of the energy blade against Doom's armor. "Looks like Doom's armor can hold out against a lightsaber," Kirishima grinned. "Does that mean that titanium can withstand lightsabers?" Tetsu questioned. "That's what they said Doom's armor is mostly made from." "Mostly," Momo pointedly repeated. "While I will not downplay the durability and strength of titanium, Doom's armor could likewise contain elements, metallurgical or magical, that might help it withstand a lightsaber. Additionally, Doom's magic or force fields may likewise empower his armor to resist the blade of hot energy." Doom backed away, causing Vader's subsequent slashes to miss. Doom launched another electricity-powered fist that clashed against Vader's lightsaber, making both fist and blade bounce away in sparks. The two cloaked lords exchanged a couple of blows before contesting once more with Vader's saber and both of Doom's arms encased in electricity. Suddenly, Doom pulled his fists back, forcing Vader's strength to carry him forward in a stumble, his blade striking the floor. Using the opportunity, Doom unleashed a short-ranged burst of electricity, stunning the Dark Lord, allowing Doom to continue with three powerful uppercuts that knocked Vader back. "Using your opponent's own strength against them," Shinso muttered, recognizing the lesson he learned from his match against Midoriya and Aizawa's training play out in front of him. Left Vader open to a combo. Doom leapt into the air before hurling toward Vader, arms crossed and feet forward. "Foot dive!" Doom announced his infamous attack. Frightful chills crept up the spines of multiple individuals in the group, including All Might, Deku, Bakugu, Melissa, Miruko, Endeavor, Hawks, Nijire and Kirishima, all of whom were unsure why they felt the sudden sensation or found the move somehow familiar. The infamous attack ended with Doom landing his foot dive on Vader's head, causing the fallen Chosen One to be knocked across the room, landing on his back. Ooh, that's got to hurt. Kamakiri winced as if he felt the attack land on himself. Vader began to rise. "You cannot escape destiny," Vader declared, crossing his arms. The air around him shivered and hummed with compacting energy. Finally, Vader lashed his arms outward, unleashing a large force blast that sent Doom skidding across the room. "Such powerful might," Reiko gasped softly, her visible eye twinkling at the show of telekinetic strength that left her in awe. "I cannot hope to obtain such skill and strength. There is an old saying I heard whose origins were lost since the chaotic era of the dawning of quirks. Do or do not, there is no try," Tokoyami revealed. "Should you believe you can never do it, then that is your result forevermore. Believe you can do it, train yourself, and there is nothing you cannot accomplish. I am sure that our classmates, especially Midoriya and his boundless wisdom with quirks, can see you achieve such strength." Reiko's mouth hung open a smidge, her pale cheeks lighting in a noticeable pink blush. Finally, the ghost-loving girl's open mouth became a small, beautiful smile, eyes flashing with gratitude and something more, something Tokoyami would not dare to name presumptuously. "My gratitude for such words of praise and faith, Tokoyami-san," Yanagi thanked the avian-headed team. "Your darkness is wise and inspirational." A red blush somehow made itself visible through Tokoyami's dark feathers. "As is yours to me, Yanagi-san," Tokoyami replied, doing his absolute best to remain as stoic as possible. "Reiko," she corrected. Tokoyami paused before nodding. "Fumikage," he replied. They were unaware or deliberately ignored the looks of amusement coming from the group, including the gushing glee from Mina, Toru, Pony, and even Setsuna. Doom landed on his feet, sliding to a stop. "You wretch!" Doom growled, thrusting his shaking fist out with barely restrained fury. The gray-armored villain pulled his green cloak over himself, his body quickly fading till he was gone. "Wait, did he just dip?" Tsuburaba questioned. "Doubtful," Jirota shook his head. The idea of running away from a battle without winning or dying trying would likely feel sacrilegious to him. He likely is using technology or magic to turn himself invisible. Hagakure perked up at the similar ability displayed by the ruler of Latveria. Vader landed from a long jump before stalking forward. "It is pointless to resist," Darth Vader yelled. The Dark Lord leapt into the air, thrusting his lightsaber downward. Instead of empty air or the floor, blood splashed out, and a cry of pain sounded. The air shimmered and distorted till Doom was visible again, the lightsaber piercing his armor. How did he find him?" Hagakure yelped, stunned. "He must have used the Force to sense Doom's presence regardless of his invisibility," Amajiki answered, shivering. "It is the same as when Luke Skywalker sensed Harry Potter through his invisibility cloak." Vader barely gave time for Doom when he fell to the floor, thrusting his hand out. Doom rose into the air, helpless in Vader's force-powered grasp. The Sith Lord proceeded to toss and slam his opponent all over the room, repeatedly slamming Doom onto the floor, onto the glass paneling separating the room from the crushing depths of space, and even striking right in front of the group, the supposed camera viewing the fight, cracking under Doom's impact. The impact succeeded in causing a few group members to jump in their seats in surprise, most especially Eri and Kuta. "Well, that was a neat fourth wall-breaking moment," Kaminari winced, hissing in discomfort at Vader's brutality. Again, Reiko stared in awe at Vader's telekinetic prowess, yet couldn't help but flinch at the cruel viciousness of the Imperial villain. She's tossed and slammed her classmates against walls before in their training sessions, and tossed heavy objects at them too, but never to the extent and power that Vader displayed. And it wasn't because she was weak. The display caused Reiko to frown, taking the moment as a reminder of her goal of heroism, and the restraint she must show, lest she bring irreparable harm to her classmates and, eventually, criminals and villains needlessly. Finally, after slamming Doom on the ground once more, Vader switched to telekinetically lifting a TIE advanced fighter, hovering it over his opponent. "Witness the power of the Force," Darth Vader proclaimed. Vader would launch the craft down onto Doom with crushing force, the screen turning white at the explosion. Is that it?" Oyama asked hopefully. Guess this was one of the quicker death battles," Kamakiri snickered. "Like Fulgore versus Sector and Dash." Kamakiri's boasting was cut short when the screen regained color, displaying the crushed TIE fighter and Doom's body, broken and in sparking pieces. Kamakiri's grin dropped. "I knew it," Melissa gasped. "It was a Doombot." "How did you know?" Pony blinked surprised. "I thought it was weird how different Doom teleported away after he killed that officer in that message and how he appeared to Vader," Melissa explained. "The former, he simply vanished in a flash of light, and then he opened a portal to hover down a chair. That seemed like two different forms of teleportation that seemed pointless, especially if the first one was simply to come in on a throne he would get off soon afterward. Unless the Doom that arrived, a Doombot, was already on a throne, waiting to be sent in by the real Doom." Nizu smirked and nodded in approval, impressed that the American inventor picked up on the same thing he did. "She has the intuition and instincts of a pro," Nizu complimented. "This bodes well for her plans to join our hero students come the start of the next school year." The UA principal also saw Melissa's sudden desire to revive her heroic dreams as a fortunate opportunity to solve the issue of Hitoshi Shinsu's eventual enrollment into the hero course, aiming to include him among the 20 students in either Class 1A or another Class 1B, leading to an odd number regardless of which class he ended up in. "Originally, I had intended to let Mr. Shinso join the ranks of the soon-to-be Class 2A. He would have fit well, thanks to his friendship with Midoriya and his group of friends. However, I suspect Ms. Shield might have more cause to join the same class she fought alongside in Island, as well as her closeness with Midoriya being far more emotional than Shinsu's." "All too easy," Vader boasted smugly. "And cue the CK in 3, 2. Mina counted down, wordlessly mouthing the one like a movie director before gesturing to the screen. Right on cue, a new portal opened up behind Vader, the Dark Lord turning to see the real Victor Von Doom floating down on another floating chair. "What a farce!" Dr. Doom spouted mockingly. Toshinori could only imagine that if Shigaraki were in the same situation as his counterpart here, he would likely be scratching his dry neck in irritation. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the group, miles away below Jaku General Hospital, Tomura Shigaraki himself floated in a capsule of water, the purple lighting illuminating his suspended animation. Dr. Kyudai Garaki monitored the machines, working on biological engineering the young man into the perfect vessel for his master, not only for the original All for One, but for the Demon Lord himself. Suddenly, Shigaraki's finger twitched, slowly craning his neck, exposing more of what had once been a dry surface, now softened and slick from months submerged in the capsule's waters. Dr. Ujiko noticed the movement from the boy, the green lenses of his glasses masking any reaction the very old man likely may have had. All for One's infamous doctor checked between the master's successor/future host and the monitors again, noting that the boy should have been in suspended animation while inside the capsule. Interesting," Garaki noted as he picked up on the spike in brainwaves and pharynx signals in the boy's fingers and neck. Brainwaves suggest a spike of acknowledgement not too dissimilar to feeling as if he was being spoken about. Signs of irritation in his neck and unconscious twitching in his fingers indicate a subconscious reflex to claw at his neck. Could it be some dream he's having? Dr. Garaki dismissed the notion, filing away the event for later as Shigaraki's vitals steadied once more, the Mad Doctor deciding to continue monitoring and adjusting the machines rather than switch to the high-end Nomus down the hall, focusing all his efforts into perfecting his master successor, in the most ironic sense of the word. Back with the group, the video continued. "Enough!" Darth Vader growled, thrusting his hand out. The broken parts of the TIE advanced fighter shook and swiftly shot out of the pile with the Doombot's remains, hurling the pieces toward the true Lord of Latveria. In response, Dr. Doom thrust his own hand out lazily, forming an emerald force field around him. The TIE advanced fighter's pieces bounced off the shield uselessly. As the assault ended, The villainous king leapt off his chair into the air, thrusting his hands upward, firing a stream of electricity. As he continued, bolts of lightning began striking down, approaching the Sith Lord. Darth Vader extended his dark-gloved hand out again, sparks of electricity sparking in the air in front of him. As the bolts of lightning reached and came down upon him, the electrical currents flowed and coalesced into an orb in front of Vader. "Ha! It's that kind-tight thingy," Kaminari exclaimed, pointing with a wide grin. "I knew Doom's electricity would not work against him. Funny. I saw him get a few electrical punches and pulses in that brutal combo at the start of the fight," Zero pointed out with a teasing grin. "I knew it wouldn't work against him twice," Kaminari corrected himself, his grinning countenance breaking a tad briefly. Vader would hurl his kind-tight orb towards Doom, who teleported in a flash of white light, the kind-tight attack striking the far wall in an explosion of electricity. "Ha, not like that shit means much else if he can't hit Doom before he could block or warp away," Bakuga scoffed. Dr. Doom reappeared on the ground, his arms reaching outward. "Beware my power," Dr. Doom declared. Waves of energy vibrated around the green-cloaked tyrant, the docking bay shaking and shuddering under the weight of Doom's power. Darth Vader stalked slowly and stubbornly through the vibrating air before a flash of white light consumed them both. When the light cleared, the fallen Chosen One found himself in the middle of a wild jungle, mountains in the distance, and clear skies above. Did he just teleport them onto the planet? Aways exclaimed, eyes wide as saucers. What is the meaning of this? The man formerly known as Anakin questioned. Quickly, Dr. Doom rushed in, grabbing Vader by the neck. "Mwahahaha." The king of Latveria laughed knowingly. Suddenly, a large reptilian foot stepped beside them. Setsuna's eyes widened drastically, while her jaw began to drop, knowing that kind of large reptilian limb anywhere. A wider shot showed the T-Rex in full view, roaring. "A T-Rex!" Mineta exclaimed, eyes bugging out of his head comically. "He sent them both back through time." "God damn it!" Kitsuna cursed. "Why are you complaining?" Ibra questioned, eyebrow raised, confused. "I thought you, of all people, would find this development highly entertaining." "That's because they use the stereotypical T-Rex design," Setsuna scoffed, gesturing toward the screen. "It didn't actually look like that. It should have feathers on its head and along its spine, maybe on its arms, something." "Honestly, there is no winning with you," Ibra scoffed, shaking her head. "Oh please, like you wouldn't complain if your Lord and Savior didn't look exactly like the painting on your wall, and looked like a black dude with dreadlocks." Setsuna fired back. Shiozaki narrowed her eyes at Setsuna but made no retort. Doom tossed Vader toward the T-Rex, only for the Sith Lord to spin around through the air like a top, his red blade making his spinning figure into a jigsaw of death. Instantly, Darth Vader slashed through the T-Rex's head, cutting the not-so-extinct dinosaur's head in two in a splash of blood, with the T-Rex's upper half of its head containing its bulging eyes, leaking a comical tear. Eri and Kuta yelped, prompting Izuku and Nijire to quickly cover the two's eyes, silently cursing at the unexpected gore now likely imprinted on the two impressionable youths' minds. "Eya ahahe!" Setsuna and Koda wailed in horror, and not surprisingly, Vader lost a vote. As the Sith Lord landed on the ground and the dinosaur's corpse fell over, Vader only had a second to turn around before Dr. Doom slammed into him, crashing through several trees as they soared through the prehistoric forest. "You think this is all gonna cause a massive butterfly effect?" Sato asked, curious. "You know, change the timeline with every tree they destroy or dino they kill. If so, one of them won't be returning to find out," Shoji shrugged. "Well, even if Vader won, he has no idea or method to travel back through time like Doom could," Hananuki pointed out. Eventually, their destructive path through the prehistoric world came to an end as they arrived at a volcano. "Ooh, I doubt Vader will like arriving there given. You know." Ojiro gestured up and down Vader and the burned, mutilated body behind the dark armor. Todoroki held back a wince as he remembered the various times throughout his childhood when the sound or appearance of a teapot caused him discomfort, especially on his left side. As he reminisced sadly, he felt the scar on the left side of his face flare in slight irritation. "Guess I still sometimes feel it," Todoroki thought to himself with a quiet click between his teeth. Vader flipped through the air and landed in a crouch. "Impressive," Darth Vader admitted. His lightsaber reignited. Vader leaped forward, bringing down his blade in a downward slash, which Doom backed away from. The Dark Lord of the Sith continued attempting a few slashes at the ruler of Latveria to no avail. With every dodge, Vader ceased his approach and tossed his lightsaber, the spinning blade hurling toward Doom, who sidestepped away, letting the blade sail away behind him. He realized he wasn't going to get anywhere with Doom if the latter kept himself out of reach of his main weapon, so he tried to toss it at him, Hawks analyzed. "A valid attempt, but not enough," Ryukyu commented. "Enough," Darth Vader yelled, thrusting his hand out toward Doom. However, the green-cloaked lord remained unaffected, standing still with his arms crossed. Why's nothing happening?" Kaminari questioned, confused. "He must be trying to force choke Doom, but it isn't working," Izuku answered, eyes widening. "It has to be Doom's armor. Its mystical protections must be blocking Vader's use of the Force." Reiko frowned, wondering if she, too, would find little success in using her quirk on the Latverian lord. Vader hummed before trying again to no avail. "Okay, this is getting embarrassing," Bakuga scoffed. His patience at an end, Dr. Doom marched toward Vader. "It is pointless to Vader's boat was cut as Doom grabbed the dark-armored Sith by his collar. The Latverian lord's arm began to glow and hum with golden light before emitting a large electrical charge onto Vader's suit. The two went still before the charge exploded, sending Vader flying backward. Landing on his knees, the panel in Vader's chest began to beep an alarm warningly, forcing Vader to breathe and sway tiredly yet stubbornly. "His suit's damaged," May exclaimed. "That electrical charge must have shorted out his systems. Then how is he still breathing?" Kinoko questioned. "He must be using the Force to keep himself breathing like was said he could," Shinso answered, teeth revealed clenched together in a worried snarl. With Vader immobile, Doom wasted no time and kicked Vader into the volcano. Now that's what I call a Sparta kick," Kirishima chuckled. "This is Latveria," Tetsutetsu yelled, changing the quote to fit the villain's country. The two hardheads of 1A and 1B laughed at their own joke. I was gonna say that," Mirio pouted. "It's better you didn't," Amajiki muttered, while Jiro blasted a low shockwave into the two hardheads' ears. "Better they get a low blast than you tied and muzzled for the rest of the session." "I don't know, I see either as an absolute win," Nijaya shrugged, arms outstretched in a way that made her large chest jiggle. Izuku's eyes wandered and stared at the distracting sight before shaking his head, blushing and admonishing himself. Meanwhile, Kaminari's meme senses tingled for the umpteenth time in this video. "You have no hope. Ha 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 ha," Dr. Doom proclaimed and laughed arrogantly. "I sense a peg about to be knocked down right about dash," Jiro muttered, gesturing to the screen. Sure enough, Vader's lightsaber returned, stabbing Doom in the back, sending the arrogant king hurling down as well. "Doom's fatal flaw strikes true," Endeavor said. "Remember, students, never boast or proclaim victory until you are 100% assured of it. Doom shows that even the mightiest can fall from it." Toshinori nodded in agreement, subtly caressing his scarred side as a testament to his sloppiness. As the two lords fell down the volcano, Vader recalled his lightsaber to his hand. "Die!" Darth Vader yelled. While Vader used the Force to hurl stones at the green-cloaked villain, Doom tossed out his own pebbles from his suit, using the molecular expander to grow them to the same size as Vader's boulders, blocking each other's thrown rocks. Yui's eyebrow perked briefly at the use of the molecular expander, silently analyzing the scene for herself. Finally, Dr. Doom flew behind Vader, thrusting his hand outward. "Got you!" Dr. Doom exclaimed before firing another enlarged rock at Vader's back, sending the Sith Lord hurling faster downward. At the same time, Doom ignited his boot's jet boosters, sending himself flying upward. "Oh!" Momo muttered, dread sinking in her gut. Darth Vader hurled feebly against the large rock until he crashed against the volcano's lava, the fallen Chosen One screaming in pain as he sank into the magma to his death. Yo! Dr. Doom's voters cheered or clapped in reluctant victory, still conflicted for voting for a villain, regardless of his moral complexity. Darth Vader's supporters sighed, groaned, or whined in defeat. The most notable among the latter group included Ibara and Tagaru, the former miffed at the victory from the man who defiled the true cross, and the latter, once more, feeling the sting of eating his presumptuous words. Izuku was among the ones who sighed in defeat, accepting the outcome. Despite his counterpart being the one who won, Izuku still did not feel comfortable with the idea that he was a villain in an alternate world among the Marvel multiverse, or in any universe really. The dark vision of his evil self flashed hauntingly before Izuku's eyes again, the green-haired teen shaking the believed hallucination away. Still, the vision's disturbing sight lingered heavily in Izuku's heart and in the conscious minds within his quirk. Doom is shown sitting on his throne, served wine by a butler while an army of Doombots and stormtroopers kneel before him, while Vader screams no as he sinks to his death into the lava. "Vader! No!" Boomstick yells out. "Damn! Burned by lava again." Shoda hissed at the unfortunate repeat of history. "Something tells me he won't be miraculously surviving from that one," Manga muttered. Darth Vader was extremely powerful, certainly capable of obliterating a basic Doombot, Wiz began to explain the results. However, Dr. Doom himself is in a league of his own. Toshinori's eyes twitched at the word league, when referring to the Lord of Latveria. Vader may be the chosen one, but Doom's experience and mastery of magic and science trump the Sith Lord. Boomstick agreed. Plus, while Vader has proven his strategic prowess over 2 decades of experience leading an army, Doom has successfully led a country, and then a whole planet, with centuries of experience. Yeah, experience outranks everything. Miruko rolled her eyes. "What are you complaining about? Your fighter won." Hawks raised an eyebrow at the rabbit hero. "Yeah, I know, but it gets boring hearing the same reason why someone won over and over again," Miruko groaned exaggeratedly. "There were exceptions, like Kirby defeating Majin Buu and Deadpool against Deathstroke," Ryukyu pointed out helpfully. "Whatever." Miruko rolled her eyes again, before settling her gaze down at Midoriya, her excellent nose picking up the discord within the boy's emotions. The rabbit hero frowned, pondering to herself. "And of course, Dr. Doom's armor is absurd," was noted. Its magical barriers and separation from the physical world have protected him from reality warping and telekinetic attacks from the likes of Thanos and the Silver Surfer, whose power makes Vader's lightsaber and force choke look like child's play. "Yeah, we saw that pretty clear as day," Pixie Bob muttered, still feeling second-hand embarrassment from Vader's failure to force choke the Lord of Latveria. But wait, how come Vader was able to land hits with the Force, like when he ragdolled Doom around the room? Rin questioned. "That was the Doombot that Vader mostly attacked with the Force, and I doubt all of Doom's robots are as similarly protective as his own," Jirota explained. Additionally, the Force choke appears to cut off a person's airways from the inside, which means for it to work, Vader would have to have his Force abilities be able to go through Doom's armor to work, and therein lies the problem. Even if Vader could get through that suit, Doom's mind is armored by his sheer willpower, preventing any of Vader's Force-powered mental reading or manipulation, was added. Similar to how Harry Potter was able to repel Luke Skywalker's similar attempts with his occlumency, Mandalay mentioned. "I believe this proves that despite its useful utility, the Force's telepathic abilities are only as effective of the weak-minded," Cementos concluded. Guess that means you idiots are screwed." Bakuga laughed, gesturing with his thumb at Tetsu, Kirishima, and Kaminari. "Hey!" Tetsu whined. "No, it's true." Kaminari slumped, a comically depressed aura over him. "Unfortunately, Vader was forced to meet his doom," Boomstick punned. "I kinda like that one," Pony giggled. Ah, such a sweet, precious mind, immune to the curse of the cringe, Setsuna sighed fondly. The winner is Dr. Doom, Wiz proclaimed. Claps sounded in the gym for a good death battle, though their enthusiasm was marred still by the awkward tension of Midoriya's villainous counterpart and a number of the group's hasty presumptions and near accusations. As they saw Midoriya barely clapping and writing in his notebooks with a quiet coldness to him, many couldn't help but feel they may have broken something precious between them and the boy. Trust. Next time on Death Battle, Boomstick announced. Music and drums played over a dark screen before color faded in, revealing a red-furred anthropomorphic creature with long, spiky locks cascading down its back. He wore red and yellow shoes accented by green rings around his ankles, and large white gloves with twin spikes jutting from the knuckles. The creature was shown relaxing on the top steps of a temple, hugging two anthropomorphic animal girls smugly, and seemingly gliding across a forest, before displaying a silhouette of the animal. The music shifted to a funky, bongo-driven tropical beat, accompanied by images of a large gorilla sporting a red tie emblazoned with the yellow letters DK, leaping onto anthropomorphic crocodiles, battling sentient floating tiki masks with arms, and taking on Mario and Link. A silhouette of the gorilla's head was likewise shown, facing in contrast to the first fighter's silhouette. Knuckles the Echidna versus Donkey Kong. So the next fight is between a big gorilla who can throw hands and... The fuck's an echidna? Setsuna questioned. They are a group of egg-laying mammals that usually originate from Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea, Koda said, fighting through his nervousness. They are covered in spines, have beaks, beady eyes, and usually eat ants and termites. We can always count on you to enlighten us about the animal kingdom, Koda? Mina said, a teasing smile on her face that made Koda blush and squirm in his seat. Don't tease. Momo lightly admonished her classmate/sisterhood member for teasing the most nervous and fidgety member of their class. Hey, doesn't he look like Sonic, Shadow, and Tails, Deku? Kuda asked his idol. Izuku blinked, finding his notebook page about the anthropomorphic animals. You're right, Kuda, they do have a similar design. Izuku nodded, smiling proudly at the kid. Nice catch. You'd make quite the observant hero one day. Izuku snatched the kid's cap off his head to playfully ruffle and shake the boy's hair. Hey, stop. Kuta whined childishly, trying to smack away Deka's hands and reclaim his cap. Outwardly, he pouted angrily, but inwardly, Kuta beamed at the attention of his idol, making him smile. The sight helped ease some of the tension and awkwardness in the group members' hearts, especially the adults who were worried over Midoriya's worsening mood. The boy and girl appear to hold the greatest sway on the boy's mood, keeping him calm and brightening his mood. Endeavor thought, briefly reminiscing of when he acted fatherly to Tuya and Fuyumi in their youth, before his obsession got the better of them. Reluctantly, Endeavor set aside the fond memory and focused on the true importance: Izuku Midoriya and all he had learned about his intern from yesterday's meeting. In any case, the boy is All Might's successor and has strength and natural talent that will likely surpass him before long, but the trials ahead will be grueling and heavy, and distrust and bitterness are the last things we need festering in our ace in the hole, Endeavor concluded. The boy has to grow stronger, physically and mentally, they all do. We cannot afford to weaken ourselves before the war to come. With no objections and an eagerness to put aside the heavy and complicated feelings and tension from before, May pressed the play button, continuing to the next video.